And it was hot. It was so hot. It was like 95, 100 degrees in the shade. The wind never blew.
And they say that New Orleans has humidity down there, which kind of cools us off. That's bullshit. It was death heat.
Inside the convention center was so stifling hot, people tried to stay outside.
Hot as hell, 100-something degrees.
It's hot.
It was very, very hot at that time. It was 97, 98 degrees.
It was hot.
The heat radiating off of the highway at night was intensely hot.
It's hot as hell.
That was the worst summer. I mean, that heat was ridiculous.
Man, hot as heck in here.
It was beyond Africa heat. If Africa heat was anything like that, like I said before, and I'll say it again, they keep saying go back to Africa. Hell no.
It's very hot and humid in dozens of states. The roads in some places are actually buckling. Wisconsin has more than 50 road closures. The state of Delaware has 7 buckled roads, and a driver's car in Missouri even launched in the air because the road suddenly popped up before it went by.
Ow! Amit Bhasin heads the Center for Transportation Research at the University of Texas at Austin.
This is not very common because if you've designed and built the road correctly, this shouldn't happen, but it does happen once in a while.
Asphalt roads get soft in extreme heat, but road buckling is mainly a problem for concrete roads.
If the temperatures exceed what the road was designed for, you might have a situation where the road is not able to handle that movement. So you'll see little bits of rock start breaking apart and chipping away from the surface.
Bhasin says there's usually a joint in concrete roads where lines separate concrete slabs.
And like with any other solid, when the temperature goes up, concrete tends to expand. And that joint between these panels is actually intended for the concrete to expand and fill that space.
And when the temperatures drop, the concrete shrinks and opens up the joint. The joint is constantly opening and closing, and that's exactly where the buckling happens.
If your concrete is not designed to handle a certain temperature or the temperature suddenly you have this extraordinary heat wave and it expands more than what the joint allows it to, then it's got no place to go.
Turns out that every state builds its roads differently based on local weather, and as human-caused global warming changes the weather, states have to deal with it.
If I were in Texas and I was seeing 110 degrees temperature and my roads are designed to handle that, it would be perfectly fine.
Bhasin says it's rare for road buckling to happen suddenly, but if you are driving on a concrete road that shows signs of it,
just be careful. If there's a vehicle in front of you, you might have some of these rocks that are flying onto your windshield.
Oof. He says when you notice too much cracking on the roads, let local agencies know so they can prevent a bigger and more expensive problem, like your car flying in the air.
I was working the road this weekend. I was flying on a Boeing 737. I've never seen people pay more attention to the safety demonstration at the beginning.
The nation's top safety investigators say multiple failures are to blame for the mid-air blowout during the flight of an Alaska Airlines Boeing 737 MAX jet last year. Members of the National Transportation Safety Board met in Washington today to review the results of a lengthy investigation into the accident. NTSB Board Chair Jennifer Homendy praised the crew of the flight for getting all 177 people on board safely back to Portland International Airport. But Homendy faulted Boeing and regulators at the Federal Aviation Administration.
The crew shouldn't have had to be heroes because this accident never should have happened. The safety deficiencies that led to this accident should have been evident to Boeing and to the FAA.
NPR's transportation correspondent Joel Rose has been following this, and he's here in the studio. Hey, Joel.
Hey, Ari.
It's been nearly a year and a half since the accident. Remind us how it went down.
Yeah, Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 took off from Portland on its way to California. About 6 minutes later, a large piece of the fuselage known as a door plug panel blew out of the aircraft. The cabin was instantly depressurized. Loose items like phones and bags were sucked out of the plane, which was now flying with a large hole in the fuselage. We found out today that there were 3 lap-held infants on board at the time and 4 unaccompanied minor children, including one 6-year-old who had never flown before. But remarkably, no one was killed or even seriously injured. The crew was able to turn the plane around and make an emergency landing back in Portland. Luckily, the plane was only at about 15,000 feet when all of this happened. If it had been at its regular cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, it could have turned out very differently.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. Have federal investigators been able to figure out exactly what went wrong?
There is still some mystery here. Investigators had said that 4 key bolts were missing when the jet left Boeing's factory in Renton, Washington. We heard today that if even one of those bolts had been in place, it could have possibly prevented the blowout. Investigators say Boeing has no record of exactly who was responsible for removing and reinstalling the door plug, and investigators say they have not been able to pinpoint exactly who performed those tasks. But NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy said this points to bigger problems with Boeing's safety protocols.
Like what? What are the bigger problems?
Well, Homendy criticized Boeing for relying on a single point of failure instead of having a more robust safety system that would have flagged the problem before it left the factory. Homendy also criticized regulators at the FAA for not being more proactive in their oversight before this incident. And one other interesting takeaway from the meeting today, it just underscored the lack of experience among the factory workers who were building these planes. We knew that Boeing had lost a lot of experienced people during the COVID-19 pandemic and struggled to replace that institutional knowledge. Investigators say there were 24 workers on the door team at this factory, but only one of them had previous experience removing and replacing a door plug panel, and he was out on vacation when this work was done.
Well, have Boeing and federal regulators taken any steps in response to the door plug problem?
Yes, the FAA says it has fundamentally changed how it oversees Boeing. In a statement, the agency said it has capped production of the 737 MAX at 38 jets per month, and that it will keep that cap in place until regulators are satisfied that Boeing has improved its quality control. The door plug blowout also sparked a crisis at Boeing. The former CEO stepped down. The company announced a host of changes, including more robust training for new employees. Boeing now has a new CEO, Kelly Ortberg, who took over last summer. And NTSB Chair Homendy praised Ortberg today for renewing the company's focus on safety, though she says there is still more to do.
NPR's Joel Rose, thank you.
You're welcome.
Against certain occupations, they talked about, and we even talked about that may not be, that may, I guess, escape AI. They talk about in-person jobs, fixing your cars, this, that, and the other. I assume air traffic controller, which we talk about a lot. You still need some people for that. But I did see, and I verified, I checked this again, they need people at the National Archives to read cursive. So that is a skill that is going away. So if you live in D.C., you need to read cursive. There you go.
Before we begin our last story tonight, let me ask you a question. When was the last time you wrote something by hand? And we don't mean signing your name or filling a form. When was the last time you really wrote? It's been a while, isn't it? Well, you are not alone. In the digital age, there is less writing and more texting or typing. A new report is out. It says that in Australia, writing skills among children are at an all-time low. Students in the 9th grade are writing at primary school levels. But now Australia wants to fix this. Here's a report.
Do you remember writing those 1,000-word essays? Or filling sheets after sheets during exam crunch time? Remember how your hands used to cramp up? Well, how lucky are the children of today? Not many of them have to brave the monstrosity that is handwriting. Children today are digital natives. As soon as they are born, they are surrounded by screens. When they get to school, if they're not ChatGPT their way through essays, at the very least, children are typing them out on their laptops. How freeing, you may say, but remember, the peniversion virus is silently fueling a global pandemic, pardon the pun. Take Australian students, for instance. They have to take what's called NAPLAN. This is an annual assessment test. For years now, a government agency called the Australian Education Research Organisation, or AERO, has analyzed the answer sheets of this test. And now, they have released a report, and it is concerning to say the least. The report says that the writing skills of Australian children are at an all-time low. It has been described as a 30-year policy failure in education. Students in the 9th grade have primary school writing skills. Ouch! Speaking of which, the pain points that come with writing by hand have changed too. They no longer take the shape of cramps. They are now found in poor sentence formation and punctuation instead, and the government is shocked. So now, Australia wants to put writing at the center of all subjects. In some schools, writing by hand gets more focus in maths. In other schools, with the English subject. But Australia wants writing to be taught across subjects like science and even physical education. The handwriting policy aims to script a revolution, and this can help other countries too. In many U.S. states, students are no longer required to learn cursive writing. Many Indian states have removed it as well. And in Finland, schools no longer teach it. The move came in 2016. Since then, parents and teachers have become worried, and they're pushing for books to come first, not screens. After all, writing is crucial for children, and study after study shows this. Handwriting during schooling is connected to improved spelling, greater capacity to learn quickly, and to boost memory and creativity. And of course, these benefits are not limited to children. They are crucial for adults as well. Yet, if we want to remember something, we put on the calendar app, not an actual calendar. If we miss someone, we don't write a letter anymore. We send them a meme or an Instagram reel. And 1 in every 3 of us don't write anything by hand for about 6 months. Yes, in the digital realm, it is not as important for us to write by hand. But the loss of writing is the loss of our cognitive skills. And according to science, in many ways, even our expression. So while handwriting is dying a slow death, it is our responsibility to resuscitate it.
He was so fat. You saw how fat he was. I don't care what I brought in this house. He just eat it up. I don't care what it was I brought in here. I bring some Popeye's chicken. That boy eat the whole thing before I even get a chance to get me a bite of the chicken. He just eat all. He would eat his little ass off. You ain't never seen nobody eat like. He would eat candy, gumballs. He made me take him over up there to the Super Kmart. Yeah. And he put them quarters in that gumball. Yeah. He had to wait till he get the red gumball. He always had to get the red gumball.
You sound like a character, I guess.
With that red gumball, and he just eat on that red gumball. I was a good brother. I did every single thing I could think to do. I was really good. I was really good. I was good. I was really good. Mama. I ain't wanting to be fat like that. I do not want my baby to be fat like that because I know a black man in America, you can't be like that. I try to...
Weight loss drugs are no longer the future. I am talking about the likes of Ozempic, Wegovy and Mounjaro. They are the new normal. Celebrities are taking them, doctors are prescribing them, Instagram is selling them. But as these jabs become a part of our lives, there's one looming question. Are they really safe? Let's look at it. Most of these started as diabetes medication. They are essentially GLP-1 drugs. They mimic natural hormones that regulate hunger and insulin. That way, users feel fuller for longer. Their blood sugar levels are low, so they end up shedding weight. In fact, clinical trials also show a weight loss of up to 26% of the body mass. That's enough to rival surgical procedures. So they are being hailed as a medical marvel. But here's the catch. It might come at a huge price. This year alone, hundreds reported acute pancreatitis after taking GLP-1 drugs. This is a severe inflammation of the pancreas. The UK's Drug Safety Agency has opened an investigation. That's because some cases were even fatal. Now, even though these cases are still rare, but they are rising really fast. Mounjaro, in particular, has drawn attention. It was linked to 180 such cases in 2025. And that's not all. New warnings are cropping up every few days. Take this report by the European Medicines Agency. It cites a possible link between semaglutide and optic nerve damage. That's a rare condition in which you lose sight. Others suggest potential risks of cancer. Then there's the British Menopause Society. It has warned that these jabs might interfere with the absorption of contraceptive pills. It also increases risks of womb cancer. Now, none of this is conclusive, but it's enough to make anyone pause. Despite clinical trials, these drugs haven't been around long enough, so it's difficult to understand their long-term safety. Most side effects don't emerge until a long time, especially until there's widespread use. And here's what experts keep stressing on. These drugs are for people with obesity or type 2 diabetes, not just for fitting into new clothes. These aren't skinny pills. They are medical tools. And once you stop taking them, your appetite comes roaring back. Studies show that patients regain nearly 2/3 of their weight they lost. And this is within a year of stopping these drugs. Basically, these drugs manage obesity. They don't existentially fix it, which means for many this is a lifelong commitment. Plus, the internet is overflowing with these jabs. They are selling it in black market. Beauty salons are offering bootleg shots. People are even buying them off Instagram. That makes it the wild, wild west. Weight loss drugs are meant to be used under strict medical supervision. But right now, demand is outstripping supply. Plus, it is also growing social media hype. In fact, so many are just self-medicating. That makes it very, very dangerous. So what should you do then? Well, the answer is complicated. The future of weight loss drugs looks promising. New jabs could even mimic exercise. That is preserving muscle while cutting fat. Cheaper pill versions are also on the horizon. Experts still say the risk-to-benefit ratio is still heavy in favor of weight loss drugs. But they also admit there is a lot we don't know. And even among scientists, there's growing consensus. More research is urgently needed. But until then, proceed with caution and with a doctor who knows your full medical history.
Because they had somebody, the black farmers in this area were protesting because they were giving all the subsidies.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah,
other people.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, that's what we was up there about. They gave another agriculture company $90 million. They gave all them other farmers opposite of us. They paid them in 3 days. They telling us we got to wait 10 months. And the bill done been, the money's there. The Congress done passed it. Joe Biden done signed it, but the Secretary of Agriculture don't want to pay us. So that's why you know the story. Yeah. So that's what we were doing up there, and we got to go back. You got elderly people done died. They've been trying to get this for 30 years. Some of them done died. How you doing? Some of them died and all, and they didn't get nothing.
Right.
And the land been taken. The whole 9 yards. So that's what we was up there doing the other day. And Secretary Vilsack paid some farmers the day before when they found out we was coming. So Vilsack went on and paid some farmers debts. See, but the actual discrimination thing, he don't want to touch that because that means he got to hand you raw money. And they don't want to hand us no. They don't want to have. You know how it goes. You know, it's now they'll give us a penny or two, but when it come to dollars, man, they don't even want to think about that with us. See, but some of them farmers been going through this. Myself been going through it 25 years. You know, you can't get no loan. You can't get nothing from the bank. No, you can't get a loan. You can't go to the bank. The first place gonna turn you down at the bank. Then they say you have to get turned down by the bank. You got to go to FSA or FHA. Okay. Well, when you go there, they already done talk with the bank. They ain't gonna. That's your last resource is the FSA. But they won't loan you nothing. See, if they don't loan you that money to farm to pay your taxes and pay your payment, they take your land. A lot of people don't know what's going on. They don't know. You know, they taking our land. How you doing? But anytime they see where we come together as a group, they always leave us out. So it's the same way about the land and the farm. You look back yourself, look how many black farms you had years ago. You know, if you last 1910, it was 16 million acres of land owned by us here in this country. 16 million. You know how many we got now? 1.5 million acres of land. Now that's a statistic you can pull up in D.C., Washington, D.C. Mention that to your people if you can. Because they got to eat too.
A lawsuit filed today against the Trump administration claims that the USDA is discriminating against a Wisconsin dairy farmer because he's white. Chloe Morrissey spoke with a lawyer from the group that filed the lawsuit and has you covered on the policies they say are unfair.
While President Donald Trump is trying to rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the country, some institutions still have DEI policies implemented. Here in Wisconsin, one dairy farmer feels he's being personally discriminated against because he's a white man.
It means that his race is more important than his personal need.
Dan Lennington is vice president and deputy counsel at the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, or WILL. He's speaking on behalf of his client, Adam Faust, who's a Wisconsin dairy farmer. Faust uses 3 USDA programs for insurance, loans, and grants.
And in all 3 of these programs, Adam Faust is treated differently because he's a white male farmer.
Lennington tells me his client pays annual administrative fees that minority or female farmers do not, and receives loan guarantees and grants at lower rates than minority or female farmers.
Many farmers benefit from these programs, but they've contained these discriminatory provisions, and we're suing to make sure that those provisions are made race neutral at the very least.
Dan explained the goal of this lawsuit is not to have minorities pay more or farmers like Adam pay less.
It's a question of what the administration does, whether they level up or they level down. We just want everybody to be treated equally.
I reached out to the USDA for a comment on the lawsuit and claims of discriminatory policies. They responded telling me they do not comment on pending litigation. Reporting in Madison, I'm Chloe Morrissey.
Now, that even sounds like this might be a food desert type environment where the black people reside in Milwaukee. I don't know. Is that the case? Is Milwaukee a food desert? Oh, man. Man.
You are very right about that. And I know we're talking about my current film, Something in the Water, but my next film is actually about food insecurity in Milwaukee. There are 13 food deserts in Milwaukee. And with Milwaukee being so segregated, most of them reside in the black and brown neighborhoods on the north and south sides.
New tonight, concerns over potential grocery store deserts in the city.
Yeah, this comes after the parent company of Pick and Save announced it's closing 5 Milwaukee County stores, 2 of them in city limits. 12 News' Cyrus Sandlin is getting the facts on how this will affect some of the city's most vulnerable shoppers.
On a Wednesday afternoon, Linda Carson begins the journey home from Pick and Save on 35th and North.
How often do you come here?
Damn near every day. This is my outing. To get out the house.
She uses a wheelchair to get around and lives just a few blocks away. She learned of the store's planned closure earlier this week.
Devastated. Why?
Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson tells me he didn't know about the Pick and Save closings before the announcement. He says he's concerned about this trend of big box stores leaving the city.
My reaction was this. I'm concerned, obviously, because I don't want to see more food deserts in the city of Milwaukee. We already have enough issues that way.
He offered this explanation about why these stores are closing.
I think what's happening is a realignment of the economy based on the availability of other shopping options. For instance, right, you can get your groceries delivered to you now.
An online USDA tool, for example, shows the 27th and Loomis store closing is in a, quote, low-access community where most residents are more than a half mile from the nearest grocery store. Experts say this can have a devastating impact. Soon, Carson will have to take a bus to another location.
Was this easy since you could just ride over?
Of course it was. And, put the bags on the back of my chair.
And she wonders why her neighborhood has to lose so much. In Milwaukee, Cyrus Sandlin, WISN 12 News.
The Pick and Save closing at 35th and North is in Alderman Russell Stamper's district. In a statement, he called the plans deeply disappointing and said he's working with developers and potential business partners to bring a new grocer to that location.
So how's the college responding to this incident?
We're having a race forum.
And what's that?
A forum on race, so we can discuss the incident and the surrounding issues of race.
So the usual lip service?
No comment.
The president of the University of Virginia is resigning following a pressure campaign by the Trump administration, marking what appears to be the first time the White House has successfully forced out a university leader. James Ryan announced his departure today amid a Justice Department investigation into UVA's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. In a statement, Ryan said he could not fight for his job in good conscience, since that would knowingly and willingly risk federal funding, student aid, and jobs for the university. For a closer look at the impact and President Trump's broader battle with higher education, we're joined by Peter McDonough, Vice President of the American Council on Education. The group represents nearly 1,600 colleges and universities. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It appears James Ryan resigned earlier than planned amid this pressure from the Trump administration and a DOJ investigation into UVA's DEI policy. So what does this say to you about the Trump administration's influence over university governance?
Well, first and foremost, I think we all can agree that universities should be receptive to thoughtful criticism, and they should be accountable when they fall short. But Congress has mandated certain types of processes, we tend to call them due process, that we're supposed to be imagining everybody follows. But in terms of control over a university by the executive branch of the federal government and using the purse strings that Congress is essentially holding in terms of federal funding, there are specific rules or specific requirements or specific types of due process that is supposed to be respected and utilized when there is a question about whether a college or a university, public or private, has complied with federal law. There's nothing in our federal system of government that enables the executive branch to micromanage all aspects of a university, and there's certainly nothing that enables it to force out a leader of a college or university, public or private.
Does Mr. Ryan's resignation, does this represent a tipping point in higher ed autonomy?
Well, I hope it doesn't, but we should all be concerned that it may. I wouldn't have seen this coming, but, frankly, I should have, and maybe more of us should have. Back in 2021, the vice president, appearing at a national conservatism conference, said we have to honestly and aggressively attack the universities in this country. He said it in a speech titled, "The Universities Are the Enemy." That should worry us all. That should worry us on all ends of the political spectrum. It should worry us whether we are in state houses or state legislatures, whether we are on the boards of public universities, or whether we are on the boards or in leadership positions at private colleges and universities, because we don't have a federal system of higher education. We have a mosaic that's made up of publics and privates, small and large, religious-based and not. And I think we can all agree that over the decades, this mosaic of higher education has really, truly been the envy of the world. It's why people come here to go to college. And it's produced the economic vitality that we've experienced here. It's enabled us to have a level of national security and health benefits. It allowed us to address some of the largest problems in medicine with a power that frankly starts in most instances in the research labs on our college campuses. And all of this is at risk.
There are those who argue that James Ryan's resignation was necessary because UVA didn't fully comply with efforts to dismantle its DEI programs. Our team spoke with Ilya Shapiro with the Manhattan Institute, and he makes that point.
The school pledged to dismantle its DEI structures and programs, and there's some doubt about whether they did that. So the Justice Department was investigating and wanted to make sure that people weren't being treated differently based on race and ethnic background and all these other issues that this school, among others, had been having. So it told them what needed to be done, and one of those things, I think, because President Ryan was deeply involved in DEI programming, including in his previous job at Harvard, that having new leadership made sense.
So do you believe the university was being transparent, or was this more a matter of rebranding rather than real reform on its part?
Well, let's start with the realization, which I believe is accurate, that there has been no outcome to any investigation of the University of Virginia at this stage. The clip that you played sound as if there'd been a verdict without a trial. If they have a branding of DEI or a branding of inclusion or a branding of equity or even a branding of equity, it doesn't make them illegal. And it certainly shouldn't make it a mandate that the president of one of the major research universities in this country, one of the major universities in this country, part of that mosaic must step down before there is a conclusion of an investigation.
Peter McDonough with the American Council on Education. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
From Imprisoned Nation.
Most Louisianans are familiar with the term Cancer Alley, referring to that stretch of land between Baton Rouge and New Orleans where petrochemical facilities have contributed to high rates of cancer. Now state residents are learning a new term, Detention Alley, as rural parts of the state are turning into hubs of immigration enforcement, with skyrocketing numbers of people in custody. Molly Hennessy-Fisk is a reporter for The Washington Post who recently spent time in Detention Alley, specifically the town of Winfield, and she joins us for more on the emotional impacts and economic boosts the rural community is experiencing. Thanks for being here, Molly.
Thanks for having me.
Your reporting begins in the small town of Winfield, the birthplace of Huey Long. What can you tell us about this community up until ICE, Immigration and Customs, came to town?
So this is a part of Louisiana I was not as familiar with. I've lived in Houston for about 14 years, and I come over to Louisiana quite frequently, including Western Louisiana. But I hadn't been to this part, which is a logging area. It's timber is the longtime industry. There were sawmills there. People were growing trees on their land and harvesting them. So that has been the main driver of the local economy. Most of the major highways bypassed the area, so they relied on timber to really keep things going until private prison companies and the detention center came to town.
Is that how ICE ended up there?
Yeah, so what happened was first there was a private prison company, CCA, which came and they built a prison which was operated by them and the parish, in coordination with the parish, the sheriff's office. And so the original facility was a state and locally operated prison. But then the ICE basically offered them a better deal, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, to have a detention center that would pay people better, have better benefits, and also compensate the sheriff's office, give them a bigger cut of how much they were paid, depending on the number of prisoners they had, but guaranteed them like a minimum number of prisoners would be housed there.
So they've turned a prison into a migrant detention center then. Ever since the re-election of Donald Trump and the crackdown on immigration, what has the town looked like? How dramatically has the population changed?
Well, in some ways, it hasn't changed at all in terms of what happens at the detention center. The detention center is technically in town, but it's not in the center of town. It's out on the outskirts, surrounded by forest, like an actual, the Kisatchie National Forest. So it's not something that people see every day. They see the workers around town in their uniforms sometimes, but the number of people that are detained there, the type of immigrants who are detained there, these are not things that people generally see or are told, although there's a lot of curiosity about that. The economy and the population have declined in recent years. Timber has declined a lot as an industry just because they need fewer workers. There's a lot of automation and a lot of competition from overseas. So they rely more in a lot of ways on the detention center to keep the economy going.
Is this some of the economic benefits that they're experiencing there? Could you explain that to us?
Definitely. I mean, when I talked to local leaders, especially the sheriff, that's what they talked about. They talked about the good paying jobs that the detention center provided, but also the cut of the money that the sheriff's office gets and what they devote that to wellness checks on the elderly, to litter cleanups, to expanding their own parish jail, adding staffing, adding investigators, narcotics investigators, because as we all know, there's like an opioid epidemic in America and other drug issues in Winfield and other communities. And generally, that's what I heard from people was they saw that as the benefit.
We're speaking with Molly Hennessy-Fisk, reporter for the Washington Post, about the economic impacts of detention facilities in Louisiana's rural parishes. According to your story, many Winfield Parish residents were initially opposed to the ICE detention facility when it started back in 2019. What were their arguments then, and in the time since, how have their minds changed?
Well, it's important to remember that this is a pretty red area where a majority of people voted for President Trump, support immigration restrictions. And so the opposition was mainly connected to concern that immigrant detainees would be, criminals, dangerous people who might escape or who would be getting released into the local community. And there were some other conservatives who were opposed to it because they didn't want money to be spent on detention. Detention and prisons are expensive in terms of how much it costs governments. And so if you're a fiscal conservative, generally here in Texas as well, where I live, a lot of people oppose that, even if they support immigration restrictions. And I spoke to some people in Winfield who said, yeah, that was their initial thought. They just wanted people deported without very much detention. And then even some conservatives today were critical of the facility in terms of they want more transparency. They want to know, what countries are the immigrants who are detained they're coming from? Are they facing criminal charges or just immigration violations, which technically are not criminal because immigration court is an administrative court, not a criminal court, right? So they said they felt like ICE and the local government hadn't been transparent enough about that.
You spoke to locals about the changes that they've been experiencing in the town. What was some of the people's reactions to it who supported the facility and the economic boost as opposed to those who didn't?
Well, I did overwhelmingly hear from people who supported it that, and I feel like I did a good sampling of going around and talking to people just around town, random people, but also community leaders, people who were active in the community, people who had lived there a long time, Trump supporters, people who were not Trump supporters. And most of them felt like it wasn't just the economic benefits. They also supported President Trump and the Trump administration's immigration restrictions. And they saw the facility as an extension of that. I did also start hearing from people that there were some locals who had been deported. And so I immediately thought, well, I wonder what their relatives think of this facility, what they learned about it through their loved one being detained and deported. And there was one waitress in particular who a couple people had mentioned. They said, well, I support Trump's, immigration restrictions, but I feel bad for this woman whose husband got deported, but I still support them. And so I went and found her and talked to her. And I even talked to her husband on FaceTime from Mexico, where he was deported back to. They met working at a local Mexican restaurant where she still works and that his family runs. And she actually had voted for President Trump, and she wasn't blaming him for what happened, really. And that surprised me.
How is she making sense of all this?
Well, her main frustration was, she was sharing her story with people because they would ask, well, a lot of them said, well, you all should have gotten his status adjusted. He should have, become legal before this happened. And she said they had tried to do that, but that it would have taken years. He would have had to go back to Mexico. They have kids. They're trying to make a living. They have rental properties they're trying to maintain. So that just wasn't doable for them. And even after he got detained, they tried to fight his case, but she said it was much more difficult than she had imagined it would be. And she wished that the system was more fair. She felt like it wasn't really fair for them.
Molly, there have been complaints of abuses at the detention center. What are the claims, and have there been any investigations into what's been going on behind the facility's doors?
There have been complaints at this particular center for years, but then also at the others in Louisiana as well as in Texas, where I live, and I have visited some of the detention centers. They range over a variety of issues, from conditions at the centers to how detainees are treated. There was kind of an uprising by detainees at the detention center in Winfield, allegations that pepper spray was used. And that was getting investigated under President Biden. But then the office that was supposedly investigating it got done away with under this most recent Trump administration. And then it sort of was restored, but it's not clear whether they're still investigating that or what's going to happen with those complaints at Winfield or at some of these other facilities. There's this big question of what's going to happen with oversight, internal oversight of these federal agencies like ICE under Trump.
What are some of the other communities that are a part of this corridor, and are they seeing the same economic boosts?
Well, like there's Gina, for instance, which is where Mohammed Khalil was held and recently released. Mm-hmm. There have been some other students who were detained by the Trump administration who were held in Basile, I think, is another one. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I don't trust my pronunciations when it comes to Louisiana. I have to get schooled. But there was a female student who was held there and released actually while I was in Winfield covering this other story. Mm-hmm. And they have spoken a little bit, I think, about being held there, the experience of being held, of trying to visit their families. All of these communities are different, though. Winfield, I went to because it was the biggest in terms of the number of beds at the facilities, but because also the town was small enough that people would know about it, and I felt like would have it top of mind and be thinking about it, versus even a place like Monroe or Alexandria, where they have facilities, but they also have a lot of other things like a university or a lot of businesses. Mm-hmm. People wouldn't necessarily know about it.
Molly Hennessy-Fisk, reporter for The Washington Post. Thanks for taking some time to speak to us about Detention Alley.
Thank you for having me.
When you're a cop, you can torment freely and see me valley, then seize it Audi, then being proudly turn a routine traffic stop to your season finale. When you're a cop.
During their June meeting, board members of the Cincinnati Citizens Complaint Authority, along with a CCA investigator, discussed an officer who cursed at a witness.
While intended to convey frustration, it still was unprofessional and inappropriate for him to say that.
Some felt the language was unnecessary.
I went to Wikipedia and looked up the definition of the word.
But CCA board member Bill Burwinkle didn't, so he began to list off numerous examples of the F word being used by prominent figures.
This is a big deal. I'm going to say one thing, Trump, go yourself. McCain replied, you. Referred to Obama as and repeatedly said, him. No one Biden.
Other board members tried to get Burwinkle to stop.
Mr. Burwinkle, I think we get the point. Can we move forward?
Chairman, I wasn't done.
Shortly after, Burwinkle referenced an apparent case of someone playing a song by the rap group NWA near police.
I've never heard of them. I did some research. NWA is a big rap group, and NWA stands for with an attitude. And the standby was playing their number one song, Police.
Burwinkle says he wanted to show the language used by the officer wasn't a big deal.
This whole disrespect thing is outdated, overblown, and a moot point.
Mr. Burwinkle used the F-bomb 17 times, and then he dropped the N-word with the hard ER.
Iris Rowley was at the meeting when it happened. She says Burwinkle's rant was inappropriate.
Mr. Burwinkle was off base. He was wrong. He was unprofessional, insensitive.
Members of the board are appointed by Mayor Aftab Piravel. In a statement sent to me, the mayor says he met with Burwinkle to talk about what happened and that, quote, his response was unsatisfying and I've removed him.
But I applaud the mayor for getting rid of him, asking him to leave the board.
I made several attempts to reach Burwinkle for comment through email and phone calls, but did not receive a response. In Cincinnati, Alex Nall, WCPO 9 News.
Is that a real gun?
Yes, this is a real gun.
Do you kill people?
No, if some guy's hurting someone, I try to shoot him in the leg or something, just to stop him.
Mama says police misshoot black people. Is it true? Yeah, is it true? Is that true? Yeah, is it true? Is that true? Is it true?
Should police use drones to keep you safe? Supporters say yes. Opponents, they worry about privacy. Jason Calvi joining us live in the newsroom. As I know you've been digging into this debate, Jason.
Yeah, that's right, Ben. In March, city documents revealed the department was starting a pilot program with the possibility to grow.
It's an eye in the sky.
This is something we need to embrace. This is something that can help all of us, secure us, make us feel better, and save lives, and save officers' lives as well.
Daniel Steininger leads the Daniel Home Foundation, named after his grandfather, Milwaukee's longtime mayor. The foundation held a contest in 2023 asking for innovative ideas to keep people safe. The winning ideas, each getting $10,000, called on using these drones.
We were on a freeway and somebody went by at 98 miles an hour. I said, I hope somebody gets him, or someone stole your car. Wouldn't it be nice if you knew that you could never get away with it? A drone will monitor anyone who steals a car and follow it till it runs out of gas.
The Milwaukee Police drone team started before last July's RNC.
The Fire and Police Commission in March said the city had 8 drones and was looking to buy even more for field testing as well as for patrol operations.
A city document says MPD paid for them with what the department seized from suspected criminals. In March, MPD's airborne assessment team had 1 full-time member and 1 part-time member. The Fire and Police Commission document from March says the plan was to grow to 4 full-time pilots and possibly 14 more patrol officers on secondary flight duties. The ACLU has worries.
Do we want to live like we are living in a place like China, where Big Brother truly is always watching?
MPD's policies say drones could be used for things like land and water searches and rescues, active threats, protests, and foot chases.
Hone's grandson is behind the scenes pushing Milwaukee police to use more drones. That push started with the foundation's 2023 contest. They have a new contest going on this year. It'll award $40,000. The theme this year is improving governmental services. If you have an innovative idea, you can find out more on the Fox Local app.
Jason Calvi reporting live in the newsroom. Jason, thanks.
Milwaukee
for late in May.
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 Right now at 10 o'clock, taser takedown on Milwaukee's lakefront.
Yeah, you see the video here. Sheriff deputies responding to multiple fights near Bradford Beach. 12 News' Kendall Keys has the new dramatic video. We do want to warn you, this may be difficult to watch.
Monday night at Milwaukee's lakefront.
Turn around! Get back! Get back!
Video shared with 12 News shows sheriff's deputies tasing a man and taking him to the ground. Days prior, another video from Saturday around 6 shows deputies trying to gain control of a crowd with tasers in hand just outside Moosa's. Cell phone video shows deputies push one woman away and take another woman to the ground. It's not clear what happens before the camera starts rolling in either video. The sheriff's office telling 12 News in the past 3 weeks they've responded to 3 lakefront fights among young people. Saturday, deputies took 3 people into custody and ticketed them. Another video posted to social media last week shows a crowd throwing fists in the same area.
It's kind of disheartening. You know, this is Milwaukee. This is home. You know, we shouldn't have to be feared coming here and having to leave early because, you know, after a certain time it gets pretty scary.
Timothy Schneeberg and Ryan Blomberg say they've seen similar videos circulating on social media in recent weeks.
I've seen fights, like videos of fights that have gone on here, gotten too out of hand. We try not to be down here when it gets too late.
County Supervisor Sheldon Wasserman says the fights and crowds are something the sheriff's office is watching, using cameras to monitor the crowds and respond when necessary.
The Sheriff's Department is watching it. They're watching the situation very closely, literally with their cameras to see what's developing, and they're ready to move in.
So, Kendall, what's the Sheriff's Office saying about this tonight?
Well, Blake, we asked for an interview tonight, but the Sheriff's Office did not have anyone available. I also asked them for the most recent numbers for use of force incidents here at the beach, but they did not get back to us with those tonight.
And we will keep asking. Kendall Keys live at the lakefront for us tonight.
We had assembly,
he let us know. Don't get, if you're a student, manual training and whatnot, don't get in trouble with the police. You bring the whole school into trouble, the whole black side of town into trouble.
We continue to follow breaking news this afternoon of 2 Milwaukee police officers shot on Thursday night. It happened near 24th and Garfield. Officials say one officer remains in critical condition and the other is expected to be okay. A suspect is now taken into custody. Let's bring in our northern Milwaukee County reporter, Gideon Verdeen. And Gideon, you have been speaking with people who live in that area all morning and all afternoon. So what are people who live there telling you this afternoon?
That's right, Adriana. I'm standing here at the heart of the investigation here on Milwaukee's north side, a neighborhood shaken up after shots fired last night. 2 Milwaukee police officers were shot, and what officers say they were responding to a shots fired call. Now, neighbors in this community tell me they're fearful and uncertain. Police say the shooting happened shortly after 9 p.m. What you're looking at now is videos of investigators combing through the backyard. They appeared to find a large caliber bullet casing. The shooting happened near 24th Place in Garfield. The call came in as a report of a person with a weapon and quickly escalated to shots fired. As officers moved through the alley, they were met with gunfire and both officers were struck. Police are calling it a targeted ambush. I spoke with neighbors in the neighborhood who heard the gunshots.
As soon as we got in the house, it was shots. We had to get all of the kids down. It was like a big pop, like a wow. And then when I got the kids down, it was a bow, 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 boom.
Pissed off. My sister's a retired police officer, so I have a high esteem for police officers. So pissed off.
Now, MPD says they have one suspect in custody, but the investigation is ongoing. We saw investigators out here all day combing this backyard as well as neighboring houses. Crime Stoppers is urging anyone with information to come forward. This neighborhood is rattled, but we will be here continuing to provide you with information in our upcoming reports. Gideon Verdeen, TMJ4 News.
Yeah, Gideon, and thank you for providing that perspective of those who live in the area, saying they're shocked and rattled by this shooting. And shortly after the officers were shot, the Milwaukee Police Association voiced its frustration, releasing a statement that said, in part, quote, "This senseless act of violence has struck the very heart of our department and our community. We have reached a breaking point. Violence in our city is out of control, and those who protect our neighborhoods are increasingly in the crosshairs." And the president of the Police Association, Alex Ayala, had this to say early this morning.
Enough is enough. Stop trying to kill my police officers. The violence against our police officers is out of hand. It's 4 officers in 5 months. It's ridiculous.
And so here are those other instances he mentioned. In February, an officer was injured in a shooting near 27th and Wisconsin. It happened when police tried to stop a man who was carrying a rifle and firing shots into the air. The suspect was killed and the officer recovered from their injuries. And earlier this month, an MPD officer was injured in a shootout near Hampton Avenue. And that brings us to today, where 2 more officers were shot and hurt while in the line of duty.
Don't wait to find out what you are doing or where you're going or what you're scared of or even what you're running for. You stand your ground. You stand your ground. You stand your ground.
And welcome to The Factor Uncensored, and thank you for joining us. First up, an update on the escalation at what should have been a routine high school track meet. 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony has been formally indicted for first-degree murder in the stabbing death of his fellow schoolmate Austin Metcalf. We have been bringing you coverage on the situation since it unfolded April in Frisco, Texas. Now, according to investigators, Anthony admitted to the crime, though he claims he was acting in self-defense. Now, with his bond set, our next guest breaks down the case and the trial ahead. Bioji, let's get the latest in this case. Now, we know it originally occurred back on April 2nd, and 17-year-old Karmelo Anthony was accused of killing, stabbing to death Austin Metcalf at Frisco ISD High School in Frisco. What has occurred? What took so long for this murder charge, first-degree murder charge, and what was the initial charge?
Well, he was always charged with murder. What we see now is an indictment. Mm-hmm. And so the indictment is an official, let's look at it this way. You have what's called a grand jury. A grand jury is comprised of 12 individuals from that county, much like a jury in a trial. These 12 individuals are considered gatekeepers with the prosecutor's case. So prosecutors file charges, that's a criminal complaint. But these gatekeepers say, you know what? We believe that there is some evidence of the crime that's being alleged here, and we're giving you permission to proceed with the prosecution of this case and move onward to trial.
But there's also help with public perception now that a grand jury has weighed in and there's an indictment, and maybe prosecutors are hoping, okay, it's not just us. Now 12 members of the community said this should move forward as a murder trial.
Yes, and quite frankly, as a former prosecutor, I'm very uncomfortable with a prosecutor going before news media to talk about a case, because that's how you taint a jury for that very reason. Hey, these 12 people said there's some evidence of a crime. To an untrained eye, they may say, oh, well, I guess he's guilty. And so I think preferably, ethically, it's best to keep these things out of the specter of the news, especially when you're a prosecutor. But what's going on right now is that in a grand jury, the only people that are in that room are the prosecutor and the grand jurors. Prosecutors can bring in witness, but a defense attorney like myself is not in that room. The prosecutor gets to present his case, like a summary of the case. In some instances, a grand jury process can be 5 minutes where they just give a verbal summary. In cases like this, where there's probably more public scrutiny, they may present actual evidence. They may bring in eyewitnesses for the grand juries to listen to. They may bring in the investigators for the grand juries to listen to. In this case, I heard that there is surveillance footage of the offense. It's likely that the grand jury has looked at that. The grand jurors look at that and say, there's some evidence. But I talk about this all the time during trial. Just because there is some evidence of a crime, it doesn't take away from the fact that the state has the burden of proving this case beyond a reasonable doubt. The grand jurors look at this at probable cause. Beyond a reasonable doubt is much higher than probable cause. So their burden from grand jury to a courtroom for trial is going to get raised. And they're going to have the burden of disproving that self-defense applies in this case.
And of course, we still have the elements of race involved. We have the community there in Frisco and around the country divided, where some people are siding with the black suspect and some are siding with the white victim. This could get very ugly, very messy in court, and a tough hill to climb, right?
As far as what's going to happen in the courtroom, you know, both sides are going to get a chance to pick jurors, or actually deselect and identify jurors that are going to be too biased, too unfair. They're going to be able to ask very specific questions. Hey, race plays an element in this case. Are you going to be able to set aside your personal views about race to follow the law? And if someone says, you know what, I'm not going to be able to set aside that bias, they get removed. They get struck for cause. And if a attorney on either side suspects it, even if they don't explicitly state that, these jurors, they can get still struck. So what's going to happen is the jurors that remain are going to be jurors that are going to be able to promise to set race aside as best as possible, because we know that's still in the back of these jurors' mind, and strictly follow the law. And at that point, the defense attorney is going to have to show that this is self-defense against unlawful use of deadly force, which is a challenge considering the fact that the decedent did not have a deadly weapon, but it can be done. And on the other hand, the prosecutors are going to have to say, look, the force that this gentleman applied was disproportionate to whatever attempted use of force he was facing when he decided to act with a deadly weapon. That's what this
All
case
right.
is going to boil down to.
This is definitely a case to watch.
Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
And now, a word from the president. Damn, it feels good to be a gangster.
The ceasefire between Israel and Iran may be holding, but the United States and the Islamic Republic are refusing to let the dust settle. In our earlier podcast, we brought you some of the first televised address since the ceasefire by Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. He declared victory over Israel and said that President Trump was wrong to claim that US strikes had obliterated Iran's underground nuclear site at Fordo. A short time later, the US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth gave a combative press conference in the Pentagon, castigating journalists for reporting a US intelligence leak which said that Saturday's bombing raid failed to destroy that site. Rather, he called it an historically successful attack. There has been speculation that highly enriched uranium was moved from Fordo days before the attack, but President Trump said that nothing had left the site. Iran has always insisted that its nuclear program is for civilian purposes only. I asked our security correspondent Frank Gardner if the world will ever find out the full damage to Iran's nuclear capabilities.
I think the only way we're going to know is if the UN nuclear watchdog inspectors are allowed back in, if the Iranian regime collapses, or if there's some really convincing hard intelligence that comes out of that. I'm not talking about conjecture, because, there's no question that the bombs they dropped were dropped with pinpoint accuracy down 2 ventilation shafts, and it's hard to believe that they went all the way down and didn't damage or destroy the centrifuges. But we don't know for certain, and there's also a big question about where is the unaccounted for 408 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. That's enriched to 60%, which is very close to weapons grade. Then, of course, you've got the knowledge, which has not been destroyed. That will be in data banks, in hard drives, in the brains of surviving nuclear scientists who haven't been killed by Israel. So, it looks good to say it's been a total success, and it looks good for Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, to say it's been an abject failure. The truth is probably somewhere in between the two.
And from what Khamenei was saying, is it your sense this isn't over?
It's over for now because both sides have got the message. Donald Trump does not want to see this flare up again. They've done this round. This round is over, but the problem isn't over because Israel is going to be watching Iran like a hawk for any signs that it's reconstituting its program. And there will be hardliners in the leadership who will be pushing as soon as they think attention is off them, to build a nuclear bomb as the best deterrence, the best defense they've got to not be attacked again. They look at North Korea, which has defied Western sanctions, built around 50 nuclear warheads and the missiles to deliver them, and no one's attacking North Korea in a hurry. And they would like to be in the same position. So I think there will be some who are pushing for that.
So is it your sense this has made the region more unstable rather than less so by this action?
It's such a cliche, I know, but only time will tell. But I'm afraid that is the truth. It's much too soon to judge whether this has been a success or failure. One thing's clear. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was talking a load of nonsense today in his address when he said, this has been a slap in the face and that the US has failed and this and that. Sorry, it's been an unmitigated disaster for Iran. Its air defences are totally penetrated. It lost over 600 people. Some of its top commanders were taken down. It has been shown to be in a demonstrably weak position. And it's true that quite a lot of its missiles did get through and hit Israel, and I think it's been a shock to Israel. That is true. But Iran didn't win this. There's no winners really in this. I think this is just the end of this chapter, but the problem persists. And both Iran and Israel have got a degree of jeopardy here. Israel's problem is that it still faces an implacable foe in Tehran that has vowed the destruction of the state of Israel. That hasn't changed, and there is the potential for them to pursue a new underground nuclear enrichment program. And for Iran, the jeopardy is that if Israel suspects that strongly enough, Benjamin Netanyahu is in as much of a warlike mood. There is the risk for Iran that there could be another preemptive attack by Israel. So we're not out of the woods yet.
Well, as you heard Frank say there, the threat of further airstrikes on Iran is still a very real one. But on the ground in Tehran, people are still trying to piece their lives back together after 12 days of bombings. Our international correspondent Gus T has been allowed into the Iranian capital on condition that her reports are not broadcast on the BBC's Persian service, which transmits news in Farsi. That's part of an Iranian law that applies to all international media agencies who are operating in Iran.
In this Tehran hospital, they're still treating some of the civilians and soldiers injured in Israeli attacks. All the beds in this emergency department had been filled with patients. Ashraf Bargi, the head nurse, worries they could be overwhelmed by casualties again. I'm scared they might attack again, she tells me, reflecting what we hear from so many people in this capital. We don't trust this war has ended, she says. Tehran slowly returns to life, at least on the surface. It's the third day of this fragile ceasefire. For now, it's holding. More shops open today at this popular Tajrish Bazaar. More residents who fled this city have returned. I wanted to come back to the comfort of my own home, remarks Roya, as she shops for food at the start of the Iranian weekend. It was tough to be away, but the nights we spent here were really hard too. During Friday prayers, there's certain to be defiant slogans from the government's most loyal supporters, condemning the United States and Israel. On Saturday, state funerals will be held for many of the senior military commanders and nuclear scientists assassinated in Israeli operations. Another official event where grief will mix with anger and hostility. And another moment when Iran will again be in the eyes of a world where many now worry about what comes next.
Gus T in Tehran.
Special delivery. Special delivery. This is the remix. Special delivery. G-Dep. Special delivery. Come on now. Special delivery. Charlie Ghetto. Special delivery. 115. Harlem's finest. Yeah. Special delivery. Alumni, baby. BR. Special delivery. Go Space. Special delivery. Craig Special delivery. I'm that boy that's gonna dig the bad boy, baby. Yeah. Special delivery. Special delivery. Come on. Special delivery. Special delivery.
Yesterday, in a Manhattan federal courtroom, the defense gave its closing argument in the criminal trial against Sean Combs. The hip-hop mogul, known through the years as Diddy or Puff Daddy, is facing federal charges of sex trafficking and racketeering. NPR culture correspondent Anastasia C.O.W.S was at court yesterday and joins us for an update. And just a note, this conversation will include descriptions of physical and sexual violence. Anastasia, hey.
Hi there.
The trial began in early May. It has been, to put it mildly, a lot to follow. Can you give us a brief overview of what the charges are, what the scope of this has been?
Sure thing, Scott. Well, federal prosecutors have charged Sean Combs, who's been a major force in hip-hop since the 1990s, of forcing two ex-girlfriends into sex and drug marathons that involved encounters with male sex workers at locations across the country. And they're also accusing him of using his legitimate business empire, which spans fashion and music and liquor and television, to hide those alleged criminal activities over some 20 years. And Combs has pleaded not guilty to all the charges.
How exactly did the prosecution lay out their case?
They presented witnesses and evidence for 6 weeks, Scott, which included having more than 30 people testifying. And those folks included the two girlfriends, the singer and model Cassandra Cassie Ventura, and another more recent girlfriend who testified under the pseudonym Jane. And the jury also heard from dozens of corroborating witnesses. They saw video clips of those alleged marathon sessions, which Combs referred to as freak-offs, hotel nights, or Wild King nights. And they've also seen video of Combs beating Ventura as she tried to escape one of those sessions. They've also seen literal receipts of the travel and hotel expenses for the male escorts that Combs' company paid for.
These are a lot of allegations. How did Combs' defense try to counter them?
They've said from the beginning, Scott, that all of those sexual encounters were consensual. And for most of the trial, they said they would have witnesses on the stand themselves for at least a couple of days. But instead, they called no witnesses at all, and they presented their defense case in just half an hour.
Just a half hour. I mean, compared to 6 weeks, that is remarkably short.
It really is. So their main tactic during both cross-examinations and then again in closing arguments yesterday was mostly to undermine the witnesses' credibility as best they could. Defense lawyer Mark Agnifilo sought to reframe the prosecution's narratives that they'd built over those 6 weeks. He said, quote, Cassie is nobody's fool. She's sitting somewhere in the world today with $30 million. He's in jail. It's like a slaughter. Agnifilo here was referring to civil settlements Ventura received from Combs and also from the owner of the hotel where Combs was taped physically beating her in 2016. And Agnifilo also said, yes, the relationship was full of domestic violence, but he also called it, quote, a great modern love story.
So this goes to the jury now?
Yes, jury deliberations are set to begin on Monday, and if Combs is found guilty of all the charges, which are sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution, and racketeering, he could face up to the rest of his life in prison.
That is NPR's Anastasia C.O.W.S. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Wow. Black male privilege. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade. Back on a Saturday for what seems like ages with Milwaukee and the Seattle International Film Festival. It's been a minute, but compensatory call-in, hopefully to share constructive information about things, events, what's been happening on the plantation, really, over the past 7 days here at the Context of White Supremacy. Worthless Negro from Virginia, Mr. Gus T. Today's date, Saturday, June 28, 2025. So I have been told. Our compensatory call-in, not for spectators. If you have thoughts, observations, dial in, let us know, especially if you have suggestions on how to replace white supremacy with justice, or at least, get us started off in a good direction. Let us know. The number 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. The number again 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Let us see a few things. Number one, much obliged to all the folks who invested and helped us get out to Milwaukee, helped Gus T get out to Wisconsin and back safely, prayed, invested, all of that. Hopefully it was worth the time and energy to get out there, cover the trial, and learn a lot more about the environment in which this happened. Because certainly Gus T could have remained in Seattle, watched the entire trial except for jury selection, which was important. But I could have stayed here, watched the entire trial, and still done the book. Well, maybe not done some of the other programs because we would have been doing trial coverage, right? So, but I could have stayed here, covered the trial, and then more quickly got back to our regular schedule because I wouldn't have had all that travel time and then gallivanting around Milwaukee for 2 weeks or so. So keep all that in mind. Was it worthwhile? Hopefully so, in learning more about the global system of white supremacy, racism. Generally speaking, I do think going to court is important. That's one thing I learned. You should go to court. If you are in the Frisco, Texas area, oh my God, you should go to the Karmelo Anthony court proceedings. If you have if I had a group of children, like retired firefighter, and working with the young people, with Mr. Clark and all that they've done for years, tremendous work. Man, if they were in the Frisco, Texas area, man, we should go at least a day or two. Maybe we can't go to the whole thing, but we can, tell the parents what we want to do. We'll be there to chaperone. Maybe we don't have to be there for the gory parts, if they're going to show pictures and all that, autopsy photos and such. But hey, we should go to some of this trial. Hey, what happens when you all go out? You all are young people. You all are about the same age as Mr. Anthony, 17 years old. What happens when you go out and maybe you have an altercation? Somebody says something to you. Maybe they call you a name. Maybe even they call you a nigger. What happens? Not just on that day, but what happens the next day and the next week, next month, next year? What happens? Oh, yeah. Go to court. Very constructive. Number 2. Man, my head is still spinning from Milwaukee. That all of that did extract a toll. I remember when I was in California, I was at a lecture at Stanford that was about white supremacy. White female racist suspect. She said she was talking about her own research for racism, and she said that traveling, where you go to these different locations and have to go to the library or go to different sites and talk to people and all that, she said it is grueling. And I remembered that absolutely, as I was, about 900 miles from my residence at the time. And then even because I was in Stanford and my hotel was in San Francisco, so I was about 45 miles even from my hotel room at the time that I'm sitting listening to her lecture. Like, yes, indeed, traveling for research is grueling, and especially so in Milwaukee. Like, for reals, I thought anybody I hear say, hey, I love black culture, I love black people, zip, immediately ship them to Milwaukee. Like, not another word. 30 days in Milwaukee. Now and you got to stay in the black part of town. Don't think you're going to get no 5-star hotel next to Pfizer Arena and all that. You're going to stay with your black brothers and black sisters in the black part, food deserts and all. You're going to stay with your black brothers and sisters in Milwaukee for 30 days and no car. Give me them Tesla keys. You're not going to ride around Elon Musk style. Oh, no. You're not going to do no ride share either. Here, we give you a bus pass. You're going to ride the bus with your black brothers and sisters because it's a majority black city. So you need to be elbow to elbow with your black brothers and sisters in Milwaukee for 30 days since you love black culture and black people so much. See how much you say that after we come back and chat it up after 30 days. If you haven't developed alcoholism or an addiction to cheese curd or whatever. Like, man, yeah, and how many times did a vehicle drive through a residence while you were there? Anyway, travel is grueling, but if anything, going to Milwaukee was just supposed to be the trial run, if you will, for Buffalo, which is a return trip just like Wisconsin. I'd already been to Buffalo, Peyton Gendron. Why for did you shoot up the Tops grocery store? Why did you kill all them black people? You don't even live in Buffalo. Why did you leave a racially restricted region, drive nearly 200 miles to come and kill all these black people, and then apologize for shooting a white person? My bad, white brother, my bad. I just came for the Negro. That is the trial. Gus T. I went to Buffalo once. He pled guilty. I did not think that they were going to death penalty. Like, whoa. That is the trial Gus T wants to be front and center for. Now, they were talking about delaying this trial. The defense had requested delaying this trial. It was supposed to start in September. But then, one of the defense attorneys passed away. Like, man. And they were asking for more delays, and it looks like it was looking as though they had this printed that it might have been delayed a couple of months. But then it looks like they might go ahead on schedule, September 5. So I'm going to have to kind of keep an eye out to see if are they going to go ahead and stick to the original September 5, or are they going to move this back a few weeks and all that, because it's already been delayed, a little bit anyway. This happened in 2022, so it's already been over 3 years since the original massacre. Many people have forgotten about this. Thankfully, not Gus T. It is white people make it a tad expensive to travel, and especially for these trials, because sometimes you don't really know how long they're going to last. Now, Milwaukee, I will say, I was in error. I thought that trial was going to last a little bit longer than it did because they had so many witnesses, mostly because Max Anderson, convicted killer, race soldier, he pulled a Diddy. They didn't call nary a witness. He didn't take the stand. The prosecution rested, and simultaneously the defense rested, because we ain't going to call nobody. Like, I did not expect that in the Max Anderson trial. Like, I didn't think he was going to take the stand, but the defense, they did have a witness list, and I thought they were at least going to, even O.J. Simpson, like, they called character witnesses, right? They got his mom on the stand, his parents, Max Anderson's. They were in court every day until the verdict. They were in court, so I thought at least some of them were going to take the stand, talk about what a swell fella Max was, and he didn't do no chopping in my presence, and that nothing. They didn't call no one. So that greatly altered my perceptions about how long all this would take, because they didn't. And even the closing argument, it was they totally pulled a Diddy. 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Like, they didn't even spend a whole lot of time. Like, yeah. Whew. They got them grapefruit mimosas at the... Yeah, let's wrap it up. We're done. We're good. Let's go. Like, man. Like, that, which brought me back to what I said the whole time. If it's going to be all this, why not plead guilty? Anyway, the fella in Buffalo is not going to plead guilty because this is a death penalty case. So, if they proceed with this in September, Gus T is going to suck it up, recuperate, take some deep breaths, do a little yoga, self-care, get it together, and oh yeah, because Milwaukee was not even planned. That was not even, I really had no thought process until I'd connected with Miss Scarborough and all the rest of it. And hey, I learned a lot in Milwaukee, but now I have a trial run, death penalty trial in Buffalo. And this is an important trial, yes? This is an important trial, yes? I think so. This is one of those that should be, you have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, cousins, young neighbors. Same thing I said before. Maybe you, like retired firefighter, you work with children, you work with younger people. They might ask 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, hey, old dude, old gal, were you around when that race soldier shot up the tops. Man, what do you remember? What did you think at the time? You'll be there, and then you can point. Old lame Gus T, he'll have passed on by then, we're talking 30 years, said old lame Gus T, when he was here, talking fool talk mostly, but man, for a couple of days, he got it together, or I guess really for this trial, because they say it might last 5 months. Eep. Hopefully they're exaggerating, but I mean, it's been hard to even get a start date and all that, but I mean, for a death penalty trial of this magnitude, oh yeah, I could see it lasting a few months. Really, I didn't think the Maxwell Anderson trial in Milwaukee would last a few months, but I did think there would be a few defense witnesses, so it might last 3-4 weeks. And if they had called even 2 or 3 witnesses, it would have lasted 3 weeks, but oh well, all done, convicted, moving forward. Buffalo and 22 caliber killer. Joey, remember? For sure. So, if you think it was constructive, Gus T's efforts in Milwaukee, stand by my work, and should be even, more to come. Get some of these white fellow with the covenant and all that stuff. I was jet lag, man. I'm still trying to get back in. What shall I recuperate from Milwaukee? You heard? I'm trying to recuperate from all that still. See? So, if you thought what Gus T was able to do in Milwaukee, broadcast-wise, counter-racist research-wise, was productive, and particularly the trial coverage, first time, that was my practice effort, so it should be even better this time, and plus, I've already been to court in Buffalo, so I mean, for reals, it should be better this time. You know all these people. Even met some of the witnesses, victims, family members, talked to Grady Lewis, right? All that, TOPS workers, all that. It should be way better this time. We will see. I think the goal should be for how expensive white people have made things, although Buffalo is not as pricey as LA, thank God, and no question marks as to why that is. Just like Milwaukee is not as pricey as California or LA, so not quite as expensive, but still, Gus T might have to hang out in Buffalo for quite some time to cover this trial, and I think this is important. I think this is important enough that, yes, if given the chance, Gus T can, would, and should cover the Peyton Gendron trial from beginning to end, even if that means the same thing from Milwaukee. So that means we don't have a book club for 5 months? Yes, because we already did the book club for Buffalo, 22 caliber killer. Yes, sometimes I think this would be a little bit more important. Just pay attention to what's happening. I mean, we could be lame and wait until all this comes out in the book, like 5 years later, but I mean, we could just pay attention to it right now. Pick out what we think is important. Did he get help in putting all this together? That was why I went to Buffalo in the first place. Plus all the rest of it. How much? So much to know. Let's get to the details. I don't know if this is going to be on TV or not because this is a federal trial. This is a death penalty trial. Anyway, I think the fundraiser number should be about $5,000, which I do think is a little high just because it's so short. Like, I think this would have been really easy. But Max Anderson, that was not... I did not anticipate a double whammy of travel because I am a home, but I can only back up to say, hey, I did not want to go to Milwaukee. And to be frank, I'm not excited about going to Buffalo. Matter of fact, you could say the same. I do not want to go to Buffalo. I've never heard anybody excited. Woo-hoo! I am overjoyed about going to West New York. Are you serious? But to cover that trial, I scanned my trial notes from Max Anderson already. New notebook. Let's ride. Let's ride. And I put in my request for court exhibits for Max Anderson. Let's get to it for Buffalo. Now, I will do my part. I will see if I can nab white people's funding, which is very difficult for black people, which you all know. Neely Fuller talked about. Many others when trying to do something constructive. White people are not helpful, especially if you're going to be direct in talking about racism. But that said, I will do my part to see if white people will assist with funding, compensatory investment requests, and the like. But I think the number to hit would be about $5,000 to stay in Buffalo for, it might have to be 5 months. Like, Jesus. Which, now how much of, wow, this is just counter-racist labor? Because I mean, wow, I would hate having to trade Seattle for Buffalo for 5 months. That would mean Gus would probably have to endure many snow events and cold weather in Buffalo. I would be disappointed, but I would not exactly be sobbing if I did not get to go to cover the trial. That is a counter-racist assignment. Already went to Buffalo, finished the mission, but man, ain't nothing to be excited about in going to Milwaukee. Ain't nothing to be excited about in returning to Buffalo. And I mean nothing. Except the trial. Not even, I didn't get to see Niagara Falls last time because it was cold. Not even seeing Niagara Falls. No, thank you. Anyway, the number 5,000. Well, maybe we'll do a GoFundMe to see if Gus T trial coverage, is it constructive enough? Yes, go cover Buffalo. Even did we remember? That's one I should even ask. So now that Sade Robinson is over, right? I don't know if that, or I know that didn't get as much attention as Buffalo. I know that didn't get as much attention as the Buffalo massacre. Did you all hear, like, black people say that they care about black people who are born here? Because Sade C. Robinson, born right here in the so-called U.S. Do you all hear black people who talk about, we're only concerned about the black people here? Did they talk about the Sade Robinson case? Did you hear them talk about this, the court proceedings, and this is a travesty, this race soldier killed her and all that? Did you hear? Because I will say that was one observation from the courtroom. Like, man, where is the black press? I'm not putting any names on it or anything, because the traveling is expensive. Can be difficult to get to Wisconsin or what have you. I wasn't exactly whipping out my platinum card to go and get the hotel next to Pfizer Arena and all the rest of it. It can be pricey. But Gus T made it, stayed the whole time, whole trial, jury selection included. I did hear folks say, where's the black, what? I even heard some folks, because they say that tacky phrasing, black and brown, where's the brown press? Still looking. I did see Gus T. Every day. Seattle Supersonics hat on, repping for 206. But I did not. Now, maybe they did what I just said. Maybe they stayed and watched on television, which is valid. You could do that. You could have stayed and watched on YouTube and comfy. In the bubble bath, your footies, having some homemade, smoothies and all that, and watch every bit of it in HD, and maybe had a better view for some of the video than Gus T in the courtroom. But you all can let me know, did you hear, people classified as black in the press? Did you hear them talking about the Sade Robinson case even once they got to trial time and conviction? even if it was a criticism, because I did hear some of the tacky, this is what you get, swirling and dating a white man. That's which I think is totally incorrect. Blaming the victim. People who are most to blame classified as white. But did you all hear? Maybe that'll factor in on whether or not, now is Gus T worth $5,000 US to go and do court coverage in Buffalo for a death row trial? We shall see. Anyway, and to add to my resume, I did get uploaded. I was a little nervous. I was able to get uploaded both of the recordings, both from June 18. Man, I didn't care nothing about what happened in Milwaukee on June 19th for Juneteenth, mostly because of what you just heard in the audio today. But man, on June 18, when I was able to go to City Hall for that facial recognition meeting, that is in the archives, and I feel like I even need to share that with some of the folks in Milwaukee, because I have been looking for the video of that meeting and I've not found it. I've been looking to see if they have like the full audio from that meeting. I've not found it. Thus far, 206 Gus T Renegade, my podcast recording, is the only audio that I have located of the facial recognition meeting at City Hall in Milwaukee, which was all about racism and lame. That is in the archives. I'm so thankful, and I guess I will have to pass that to some of the folks in Milwaukee, because I certainly think if you are classified as black, particularly after what happened this week, you for sure should listen to what they said. And you thought they wanted facial recognition technology before. That's in the archives, as well as when Gus left that meeting at City Hall. Where did he go? He went to White Folks Bay to hear that white civil rights attorney, so-called suspected racist, talk about Jeff Dahmer, racism in Milwaukee, and being in a concentration camp when he was a toddler. And then racist covenants in White Folks Bay. I also thought that I had maybe botched that audio or didn't quite capture it or something unruly, but it was captured. Now it has been uploaded, so you'll hear Gus T's questioning. You'll hear them coming to pester me with even more questions. After the talk concluded, again, I sat right in front of the author, Mr. Jacobson, because I was on the front row. There was only two Negroes there, and I was not going to sit in the back. Got my glass of wine, and I went front of I could have been doing the interview. I sat so close to him. They are both in the archives, both the same day. That's why I said I would stand by my work. What did you do first time around going to Milwaukee for your court coverage? Every day, all 9 days of the trial in the archives, and then research that I did before, and because I knew about the facial recognition meeting before I ever left Washington. So that was research that I did before and while I was in Wisconsin. Invest, you can hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. Send Gus to Buffalo. PayPal button in the top right corner. Beneath the PayPal button, you'll see the links for PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo. The Cash App address, cash.app/$ the cows. Again, enormous gratitude everyone who helped get Gus T to Milwaukee. Hopefully it was constructive to get as much detail as I thought possible with regards to the Sade Robinson trial and then the environment in which the Sade Robinson murder happened. And then on to Buffalo, which reminds me of Milwaukee in a number of sad ways. But on to Buffalo. Tops. Peyton Gendron. Joey 22. So similar, right? Because we got the crime that was similar that happened before, like a lot of similarities. Anyway, on to Buffalo. Now, audio clips for this week, and even what is the value of the compensatory call? Like, we didn't have it for a month, so maybe people say this is a waste of time. We do not need now I will say I have heard from a number of non-white people, like when I say a number, like many, dozens, over the years, Gus T, I don't watch the news, or I infrequently watch the news. I don't devote a lot of time to it, so often the C.O.W.S compensatory call-in, that ends up being the totality of the news that I check or get for the week, or a large portion of it. I've heard that from many, 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 many non-white people. So that part I know is valuable, and then even processing in a counter-racist manner, processing what was heard, what words were used. Did this make sense? Were they lying to us? Were they accurate? What does this mean in the system of white supremacy, racism, and how should we think about this as victims? I think that's important too. But folks can reassess, and even having a forum where folks can kind of share these ideas in a codified manner without name calling, attempting to be logical, evidence-based as we solve problems, replace racism with justice. That's it. The audio segments that we heard at the beginning, they were talking about the extreme heat, and they mentioned Wisconsin. I even mentioned the poorly maintained roads in Wisconsin, which is a big problem. Now the heat adding to it. They even said that the buckling roads, that can cause some of these accidents that might send a car flying into the air. Now, I've seen enough vehicle crashes that happened at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., times where the sun is down, and I don't think extreme heat was a problem. But Wisconsin is an area where they already have a lot of dangerous driving conditions. So scalding road, you just add that to it. Drag racing and motorbikes and Mad Dog 2020 and 13-year-olds on the road, black males with no driver's license. And oh, yes, we got 100-degree heat today, so we add that. They gave the report about the lack of handwriting skills, and we've heard that a lot in a lot of different contexts. We've heard that in a research context where people going back to look at like family records and such, that a lot of those older records, once you go past like 1920s and such, maybe not even that far, it's handwritten. And if you can't read cursive, if you can't read handwriting, you might struggle going through some of those records. And then I've heard this in other contexts as well, where just not being able either to write cursive and or not being able to read. They were saying the National Archives, you get a job if you can read cursive, because that's just a skill that is not used. That might even be one. Get maybe an old-timey journal and encourage a little bit of handwriting. That doesn't have to necessarily be an everyday thing, but just enough of it to, work the muscles in your hand, work that part of your brain computer so that skill is not totally lost. If you do have to write out one page of a letter, you can do it without your hand falling off. Somebody actually can read what you've written. Might be something that's worth practicing. And apparently that might even be a skill that you can promote and advertise that, hey, I can write cursive. Really? Let's see. The weight loss drugs, and they even said that the lack of handwriting might be contributing to verbal skill or problems with verbal skills and problems with writing. I suspect that could be very much true. Might be another reason to encourage getting that journal and doing some writing, at least maybe once a week or so. With the weight loss drugs, if you have children, they're in their teens, younger, I'd say, I guess, especially females, because so much of the weight focus and obsession is for younger females. But man, if you have children, I would be very mindful. I've talked a lot. Hey, no smartphones, no smartphones. You have young children, there's no reason. If you have a 10-year-old, there's no reason for them to have an iPhone. Really. Yeah, really. 13-year-old, there's no reason for them to have an iPhone. Dumb phone, I guess, to make sure Eric Harris and company haven't blown up the school, but it's just no reason for them to have all of that technology constantly available to them. Why? Really, same thing we just talked about. Go get a pencil for real. Do some writing. Need some technology. But you give them all those apps and what have you. Okay, now they can go on Instagram and see all this. Oh, you need the Ozempic, or you need the black market Ozempic, and all the rest of it. And how dangerous, how addictive and dangerous on so many levels, in terms of disrupting and particularly disrupting what a child, what a young person thinks about a healthy weight and what their body should look like, and the importance of having this tiny frame, and just all of that. And then the medication is addictive. And then, like they said, what are the side effects? This sort of thing should be studied scientifically, objectively, in a lab for years. Has that been done? Nope. We're promoting it on IG. Come on. Come on. You got all these young, immature, young people where their brain, in addition to their bust, is not fully mature. Come on. That is a total recipe for disaster. You got young people, I would for sure, no smartphones, no social media. They don't need the young people version of TikTok or Instagram or none of the other social media. Let all of that go. And this would be why. There's so many reasons I would delay all of this as late as possible, especially if you have offspring classified as black. Let's see. They had the report, the Wisconsin white dairy farmer bringing his lawsuit and saying that he is not being treated fairly, that he doesn't get the same resources and benefits as a white male farmer that the non-white and even women farmers get. It is Dairy Month in Wisconsin right now. Are you serious? And the audio that I played to preface that report was from the documentary Seeds that was at the Seattle International Film Festival that follows black farmers in Georgia, and they're talking about racism, white supremacy, as you heard. Specifically, this white fella in Wisconsin, you've got all these decades where you have benefited and practiced from the system of white supremacy, racism, as a white farmer. That number one, I already told you all, in keeping Negroes out of Wisconsin and those who are there confined to Milwaukee County, southeast region of Milwaukee. So you're probably in a sundown town region, no Negroes there. And then you've benefited from all the subsidies and everything that they've done to take land from black farmers and make it substantially more difficult. And then even once they acknowledge, yeah, we've practiced racism and messed you all over and we'll try and correct that, to have white people like you, hey, y'all are discriminating against me as a white man. Even reminded me of Shirley Sherrod. When they fired her, she was under the Obama administration, black female. She worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and it was a white farmer. She had helped him keep his farm and stay afloat and everything when he was struggling financially, and they tried to lie. Well, they didn't try. They did lie and say, oh, man, you got these old black racists like Shirley Sherrod, and she's going out here messing over white farmers, and it was a total lie. But oh no, you got to get the boot, Shirley Sherrod. I got her autobiography right here on my show. There we go. The Courage to Hope. I don't like that title, but Victims Guaranteed Qualified, VGQ. The Courage to Hope. Shirley Sherrod, her husband, long history in so-called civil rights, NAACP, all that. Let's see. Detention Alley. Speaking of white welfare for white farmers, man, in Louisiana, in Winfield, Louisiana, they said, man, we got all these, because we were falling on hard times out here in Winfield, Louisiana, but hey, we got these old detention centers, ICE, round up all these non-white people. We done came up, man. Like, woof, we done got a few nickels, and they investing in low Winfield now. I checked because I said, now, is Winfield a racially restricted region? It is not. They have a substantial black population, like about 30% or so. It's pretty substantial, but it's a small town. It's not, tons of folks here. I think it's under 5,000 people. But I would still suspect, I would think, you probably got some black people working at this detention facility. I would hope in a town that's got a population that's about 30% black, I would hope some black people got a job there. But I would strongly suspect that it could be a super duper white environment working at this detention facility where, hey, y'all rounding up all these Gomez and Rodriguez and all these folks y'all say done slipped over the border and they criminals and rapists and all the rest of it. Hey, man, bring them to Winfield. We got our little detention center and we are doing all right. Man, President Trump, he looked out like, wow. They get whole lots of little programs like that. Dr. Campbell, white welfare, where you got a whole lot of white people with really no skills, no education, no ambition, really. But we'll put you a little prison, and there you go. Now you can pillage, rape, abuse these non-white people, do whatever you're going to do, and hey, now you got a job, and good federal jobs too, pension, benefits, all that good stuff. Get your teeth taken care of. I'm going to have to see, and that might be public information to see what are the racial demographics of the people that work at the detention center in Winfield, Louisiana. And it sparked my attention because they said, unless my geography is in error, it's been a minute since I've been to Louisiana, but they said Winfield is next to Jenna. And it might be that some of the other areas in Louisiana get some of these facilities. I said, oh, man, you mean Jenna, where they had them young black boys. Remember that is about 2007, 2008, where they had allegedly got in trouble. They had a tree at the school, if memory is correct, and they allegedly, someone had told them, we'll hang you from the tree. And they went in, it was a white district attorney. He was talking to the young black boys. He said, man, I got your whole life in my hands, which is true. Totally true. Like, ooh, we will Khalif Browder you so quick. And I don't know how, but somehow this story ended up getting a lot of attention in 2007 because it wasn't no TikTok. It wasn't no Instagram. YouTube had barely been around. Like, I have no idea. But somehow this story ended up gaining a lot of attention around 2007, 2008. President Obama, he wasn't even president at the time, but he ended up talking about the Jenna 6 case on the campaign trail and everything. But them mentioning that in the report reminded me, like, oh, yeah, I know this. Yeah, man. Anyway, he say the same thing to them folks in the detention camps. Like, you get the translator come over here and you tell them, look here, Rodriguez, got your whole life in my hands. Say that to him. Say that to him. Like, man, let's see. I just told you. Now, last week in Milwaukee, City Hall, they had the facial recognition technology meeting. The beginning part of the week, this before the officers got shot, the beginning part of the week, they talking about the drone program for the Milwaukee Police Department. Dang. Maybe you get facial recognition technology on the drone. Dang. Then they got to the end of the week and the two officers got shot. And they said this is 4 officers shot in the last 5 months in Milwaukee. I was in Milwaukee for one of those officer shootings. And then, incidentally, I will add that the black male officer, or the officer who was shot in critical condition, they're not sure if he's going to survive. Black male, Kendall Quarter, C.O.W.S, and they spoke with a lot of those were black people who were saying, I'm disgusted about this, and my sister is a law enforcement officer, and I have a lot of respect for law enforcement officers. They have a lot of black police officers in Milwaukee. It's a majority black city. They have a lot of black sheriffs in Milwaukee and Milwaukee County, so I wasn't totally surprised that the officer who they're not sure if he's going to make it, is a black male. So I did see some people say, whoopee, they did us a favor, hope they get more. I do not ever, and I think Neely Fuller would, or I know Neely Fuller would wholeheartedly agree, I do not ever, under any circumstances, celebrate a black person, non-white person being killed. I wouldn't care if this is a non-white person, a black person born in a different part of the world, a black person who's a police officer, which is the case here. None of that matters. That's what we are trying to get rid of. We should never, ever be celebrating a black person being harmed or killed. That is the system of white supremacy racism. And I do not take the position that Mr. Kendall Quarter, C-O-R-D-E-R, that he is now classified as white because he's a black dude and a police officer in Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a majority black city, and it's a big city, so you got to have some sort of security enforcement patrol. He might have taken the position, hey, it's a majority black city, I live here, I want to take care of my brothers and sisters. What's incorrect about that? I don't think that's something you should be killed for, even though Milwaukee Police Department is out of this world corrupt. But I still wouldn't root for a black person to be killed. I mean, come on. Let's see. So you got, or hopefully Mr. Quarter will survive. He's still in critical condition, so we'll see, how things proceed. But now that you've got these 2 officers shot, and they're going to say 4 shot in the last 5 months, you thought they were talking about drones and facial recognition technology before. You thought they were cracking down and aggressive on black people before. I'm good on all of that. Like, I don't even want to know how they are, especially the black people in the area where that shooting happened, and then throughout the city at large. Oh, man. Prayers to all of the black people who live in Milwaukee. Stay safe, but ooh-wee, I would not want to be out in that area, and especially out late at night or anything like that. Now, the report about the takedowns at Bradford Beach, at the lakefront, they said. Gus T, if you look at the photographs, I told you on my list of where I went in Milwaukee County and Wisconsin at large, and I had a lot of beaches listed. Lake Michigan is massive, so you're kind of always near Lake Michigan as you move throughout the Milwaukee County region. Man, I got my Airbnb, the second chunk of my stay in Milwaukee. I was right next to McKinley Beach, like literally 1 block from the entranceway to McKinley Marina. Walk right down the hill, bang, at the beach. I did not come out bragging, ooh, I'm doing it up. I said, do not. Once the street lights come on, I'm in the house. It's not no, hey, we down at the beach and we gonna do it to it and call me up, Gus T at the bit. Street lights come on. Deuces to the beach. I have to see you tomorrow at noon. It's really bright and sunny. I can see what's going on. Y'all not trying to do nothing, sneak up on me. Man, when I saw that report and they said the cops tasering folks and they had to jump and put the George Floyd knee in someone's back. Said, get down. What are you doing? Yeah. They said at Bradford Beach. Man, I got pictures of Bradford Beach. I was just at Bradford Beach like days ago. I went to McKinley Marina is like not even a half mile south of Bradford Beach. Like it's kind of all one big park system, even though these are separate parks as you kind of walk. Like you could take like a whole day and just walk up the whole park system of Lake Michigan right there. But McKinley is like McKinley Marina, McKinley Beach, Bradford Beach, Lake Park, all of this. They have the lighthouse. All this stuff is you just kind of walk north up the shore of Lake Michigan. But it is beautiful. They have volleyball courts set up and the sandy beaches and little coffee shops and just lovely little spots. Sometimes just sandy beach and little grassy areas. You can get your little blanket and go chill out, get some watermelon now that it's summertime, some coconut water, get your journal, go paint. Not if Leroy, what you call me coon, and I saw that element when I was there. That's why I said street lights come on, deuces. But I'm not surprised. Juneteenth weekend, we got to go cut a fool. July 4th weekend coming, we got to go cut a fool. Turn the music on and Diddy and black culture. But I was really sad because I thought Bradford Beach was so pretty. Like, man, woo. And then they come days later, the white man had his knee on it. Get down, Leroy, stay down. Let's see. Speaking of violence, so I am sure many of us have forgotten, not all, but a lot of us. It's been lots going on. Milwaukee. Karmelo Anthony, 17-year-old, not the basketball player, formally indicted with murder in Texas. They are not seeking the death penalty, even though they have that option in Texas, but now formally indicted. This is in Frisco, Texas. Now, Frisco, Texas, importantly, this is a kind of a large city. It's neighboring Dallas. Frisco has a population of a smidge over 210,000 people, so it's kind of a large town. It's almost at 250,000 people. Less than 10% black. Less than 10% black, which means it's lower than the national average. I strongly suspect this can end up being a jury with no black people. There's a substantial non-white population in Frisco, but it's not black people. They have a lot of so-called Asians, lots of them so-called Latinos, because it's Texas. But I strongly suspect you can end up with a jury with no black people. That's what I mean about, okay, we can watch all this and see how this goes on Monday, right? We get the stabbing. What happens on Friday? What happens 2 months from Monday when half people have forgotten about this? And Karmelo, who? Do it? Oh, yeah. Forgot all about that. Whoa, you got it. Ooh, that's serious. Yes, that is it. Yes. Especially you walk into that courtroom and say, well, ain't no black people. All these people look like his relatives. It's going to be on the jury. I don't, wait a minute. Yes, that also would be, that's why I said, if I lived near Frisco, Texas, worked with young people, taught school maybe, this isn't DEI, we're just, going to watch local government. And this is young people. This is just about decision making. I wouldn't mention racism at all. We just go spectate, and guess what? We could do some handwriting. You can take notes. Get an old pencil or pen and take notes. Maybe even do a one-page handwritten report about what you learned about the trial. I learned, you mess around in Frisco, Texas, you could end up with a jury with no black people. That's what I learned. Probably lots more, but You can learn a lot in a court of law. Let's see. Last thing I get in, they had the U.S. bombing of Iran and all the jostling and back and forth about how much damage it did. White people love, white people kill for fun, especially if it's directed at non-white people. I really cannot think of white people like bombing and doing all this about other white people and their weapons programs. Like, I cannot imagine white people in the U.S. being this aggressive and violent about Israel's so-called weapons program, Russia's weapons program, Germany's weapons program, Australia's weapons program. Matter of fact, they just had that big announcement. It was Australia. We're going to work together and share our nuclear weapons. I could not imagine. It's only dark people like, wait, hey, what you doing over there, Kim Jong-un? Wait a minute. We don't allow non-white people to just, think you're going to get all kinds of weapons, think you're going to do something about us. Now, wait a minute. Other white people, they let them get in this probably because they understand. Other white people, you're supposed to be getting these weapons for the Negroes, not other white. We kind of have our white gentlemen's and white men's agreement. We get all our weapons. We do exactly what we did to them Japs, man. We clock these Japs upside down. Pow! You see what we did? Nagasaki and pow! You see what's here? Hiroshima. That's what we get our weapons for. We don't get these to smack. We didn't bomb no Hitler. That's not what we get all these weapons for. We get these weapons to make sure these Africans don't get unruly. Make sure Al Sharpton don't run off at the mouth. Make sure we don't have to teach these Haitians a lesson again. That's what we got these weapons for. Less I've been in I think the people in Iran, are non-white, unless I'm mistaken. Anyway, we'll get you, Diddy. We got you. Number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Not for spectators. Let us know if you have commentary, any of the news observations, news observations, things that have happened since we were not on the air, things specifically from this week, we reported it or no. If you have thoughts, feel free. And then if you heard from the black press, did you hear about the Sade Robinson trial, even once the court proceedings, conviction, all of that? Did you hear about all of that? That would be good to know as well. Star 61, folks have thoughts, observations to share. Let's see. Folks are spectating for a sec, getting back into the flow of things for their Saturday. Like I said, it's been a good month or so since we've had our compensatory call-in for news segments and a weekly share and all of that. So folks, to get back in the groove of things, hopefully you've still paid attention to what's been happening, world events, local events, national events, to kind of share and see what's going on. I do think that is a massively important aspect of counter-racism. Like I said, some of this is spirit of Dr. Welsing, Neely Fuller Jr., Dr. Cam Bond, Dick Gregory, long list of victims of white supremacy, non-white people who thought that being informed about what was happening on the global plantation was a supremely important aspect of counter-racism, and a part because race soldiers, they do so much to keep us uninformed about things that are important, things that matter, just things that happen in the world. They long legacy of doing that and still doing that. So hopefully folks were being alert, mindful during our absence. And now that we are kind of getting back on our normal broadcast schedule, we'll be ready to roll and back ready to kind of pick out what has been going on, how they can use some of this information to help tailor our understanding of white supremacy, racism, and even how they can share some of this other information with victims of racism so we can make better choices, keep ourselves as safe as possible. Well, I'll give folks a second, see if they have thoughts, observations on the news segments. We certainly, book club back, part of getting back on the regular schedule. Brand new book, Catherine Massey book club. Catherine Massey, one of the victims of TOPS, but brand new book, Catherine Massey book club. If loving you is wrong, Greg Olson, the disgraceful Mary Kay Letourneau case from the late 1990s. Seattle history right there. We just started off first section yesterday. If you remember the case, heard about the case, what have you, going into lots of detail. If you remember the case, read about it, do you recall this case being talked about as an act of racism? Do you hear people mention this case as an illustration of racist white teachers and the damage that they can wreak on non-white students, things we have to be concerned about as non-white parents? Do you hear any of that? Question I've been asking, I'll probably ask that we think about for the duration of this text, but just started it yesterday. My own personally, I'm giddy. Seattle history, get to read about my place of residence for a few weeks on the book club. And Neely Fuller Jr., I said yesterday, he was informed. Gus T was not. For all my boasting about living in Seattle, I didn't know nothing about this case for the longest. I didn't live here when all this happened in the late 90s, but still. Fuller, to my knowledge, never lived in Seattle, but he was super informed about this case and had just brilliantly applied it to his own theory of white supremacy racism, and specifically why it is incorrect for people classified as white to engage in sexual activity with non-white people. He said it is a white adult taking advantage of non-white people who are in a childlike state. And Mary Kay Letourneau, she was explicitly raping a child. So he said that is exactly what it is every time, even if it's not a 12 or 13-year-old non-white person. Mentally, because of the system of white supremacy, that's basically the state of mind that we have. So it's the same thing. And I'm furiously trying to write it, Mary K. And I done got confused on the K because it's K-A-Y, not just the letter K. So I done got Mary K. He said she was in, where was this happening? You said, it's in Seattle. Oh, wow, it's in Seattle. Okay. I'm going to go see if I can find something. Woo, poor Gus T. But making up, compensating, read it in the book club now, and we will try to learn as much as possible about this, and then make sure, hey, use this as well, especially if you live in the Washington State area. Local history, racism, white supremacy. She deliberately, Mary Kay, picked non-white vulnerable people who would not be willing to tell her no. That's what I think, but more that we just started yesterday. So much more to learn. We just started yesterday. Next segment, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and the neutralizing workplace racism on Thursdays. Back to normal time. We just returned to this past Thursday. Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, kind of getting back into the routine of where programs would normally be. And then, as I said, white fellow with the racist covenant in Whitefish Bay. See if we can get him on the program, as well as some of the other folks with important information about the local system of white supremacy in the Milwaukee area, and then just back on our general broadcast grind as we attempt to solve the problem. But anywho, number again, 720-716-7300. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. We'll give folks like 5 minutes, see if they have other observations, thoughts to share, if they're just kind of spectating as we get back into schedule form for our weekly compensatory call-in broadcast. And again, folks can share now. Is it even worthwhile? Is it even necessary? Maybe folks have got it together. We check our news myself. I don't need no segments. Gus T telling me what happened over the past week or so, even though, as I said, I've heard from many non-white people over the years who have said that they do appreciate getting the news segments, that they, many of us don't do the best job checking news and information locally, nationally, globally. So I do think it's important to try to model that. But at any rate, folks can let us know if this segment, worthwhile, constructive, worthy of your time and energy, and then any other thoughts and or suggestions that they might have. Give folks about 5 minutes before we wrap up. Don't want to be wasting time and encouraging spectating. While we have a moment, since I did have that segment talking about the extreme heat and the roads buckling in Wisconsin and Missouri, some of the other areas, certainly drink more water. Talked about that yesterday. Maybe we should talk about that every broadcast during the summer and even some of the other broadcasts. But man, this is not the time where you want to get soda pop and liquor and a whole lot of foolishness. Red dye number 5. Drink more water, especially you want to model this if you have children. You're in some of those areas that have had high heat, and or if you're being active, taking advantage. We got sunny weather now. It's not all cold and what have you. Get outside, go to the beach. Hopefully they're not tasering folks and brawling and all the rest of it. But hopefully you can get out, go to the beach, get some exercise, move around, maybe do some, yoga at the park, go for a swim, whatever it might be. But drink more water, especially if you are being active. Don't want to get out there and get dehydrated, heat stroke, and all the rest of it. Be safe. They were talking about that big time during the heat wave out at Juneteenth last week in Milwaukee. But drink more water. Take that seriously throughout the summer, and especially if you have children. One comment I will add in, so we give folks last few minutes to see if they have commentary to share or just kind of spectating for the Saturday. I heard from some of our C.O.W.S listeners. They were saying that, oh man, some of the folks, they were bummed because they would exclusively listen to the archives on YouTube, and they weren't able to access the content on YouTube. So they were, I don't know, having some sort of minor, I guess, fit about, how am I going to access the C.O.W.S content? Settle down. I've heard that, and I say it that way because I've heard that so many times over our 16-year broadcast history. When we started, we were on Blog Talk Radio, and when we white people booted us from Blog Talk Radio, and I remember people saying, oh my goodness, I listened on Blog Talk all the time, and now that they're not there, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. And agony, what are we gonna do? And we didn't even have like an interruption of a week or anything. I think within days we were back up rolling, no big deal. We have been sabotaged and attacked for the entire 16 years of our broadcast history, where race soldiers and even some non-white people are not fans of our work and deliberately work to disrupt and or destroy the C.O.W.S radio program. So if you do think this broadcast is constructive, my view is that it should not just be, the C.O.W.S is available on YouTube or Apple Podcasts or Podbean or Amazon Music or Spotify. And the C.O.W.S is available on all of those platforms. But it can't just be like, oh, okay, well, I normally get the C.O.W.S on Spotify and whoops, something happened. Maybe white people took it off Spotify. Maybe they deleted the whole thing from Spotify. Who knows? Anything. It can't just be, well, oh man, that Gus was all right at least some days. Oh man, I at least appreciate being able to go back and, listen to some of the Fuller archives or Welsing archives or Tommy Curry or whatever. I at least appreciated that. But now it's not on Spotify, so come on. We got to do better. If any content, this goes way beyond the cows because I've seen this throughout my life. Any content, if you think it's constructive, especially if it's content that a non-white person produces that is about white supremacy, racism, something that is constructive, even if it's indirectly or not even about racism at all, but it's something constructive, man, you had better bookmark, save, record, and then if something happens where they disrupt it on this outlet, I might need to know what is their contact information so I know if they move it over here, different website, whatever the case, because I've seen that so frequently, especially with I might even say exclusively with non-white people who are doing something constructive. And my comparison for this is I know a lot of non-white people who watch television. Amen? Okay. Based on that, I have seen where for many non-white people, and we all have different show, what's our show, in quotes. I've seen where something happens where our show, it gets moved to a different time, it gets moved to a different network, or it could be a whole lot of things. The way that we normally access the program, it doesn't work. Generally, what I've seen is that does not mean, I can't even watch that show anymore. Generally, what I've seen, what that means is, we gonna try this, and we gonna try this, and we gonna try this, because let it be the Super Bowl. We go to watch the Super Bowl, and somehow we click on the channel, and boop, what? Wait a minute. What? No. What? You think I'm fitting to miss Pat Mahomes? Because if I have to go next door, if we have to call the cable people, it's going to be, we're going to try A, B, C, D. It ain't going to be click, no. Oh, well, I guess we don't get to see Pat Mahomes this time around. Nah. We're going to put in quite a bit of effort to see if we can get another alternative means of accessing that Super Bowl and Pat Mahomes. So same thing for counter-racist content. If it gets moved, if white people practice racism and delete the YouTube channel or whatever. Let's see if they were, they're also on Spotify. They're also on Apple Podcasts. They're also on Podbean. Okay. Bookmark, save, keep it moving, and share with other victims of white supremacy, non-white people, if you think it is constructive. But that's one that I've heard for a while, and that's one that I've heard about not just the cows, but a wide variety of non-white content, because non-white content, especially about racism, white supremacy, frequently, mysteriously gets moved or damaged. Be aware, plan accordingly. Anywho, all that said, I'll assume folks satisfied, nothing pressing they need to share at the moment. Didn't see any hands. As I said, we will be here on, at minimum, Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Back rolling, we were here this past Thursday for Neutralizing Workplace Racism, and then Catherine Massey Book Club returned last Friday, or yesterday, excuse me, brand new book, If Loving You Is Wrong. We'll be here, audio segment or book session number 2 next Friday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. That said, we will kind of be back getting to our normal schedule. I will update about guests and all of that once I'm able to kind of work out a date and time. If we can get our White Covenant owner in Wisconsin, we can get him as a guest on the program, and then some of our other Wisconsin folks to reach out to Once I'm able to kind of suss out dates and times and all that is kind of get rerouted here in Seattle, I will upload. So just be mindful. Social media, Facebook, Twitter, all the like. I'll post as we have upcoming guests, times for dates. Unless something really weird, unusual happens, all of our times are the same. 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. The cows getting back in the groove. Folks are good, hopefully safe. Just spectating for a Saturday as we kind of get back in our routine. Hopefully the broadcast segments, news segments, informative about some of the things happening in this part of the world. On the plantation this year week, last full week in June 2025. Summertime coming up, July 4th coming up, and all the rest of it. I cannot stress enough our PSA. Sobriety would be best, especially if you have young people. I'm sure you have some young folks who maybe they just graduated high school, maybe they just came home from college or graduated college, and they're looking to have fun, meet up, get reacquainted with their high school chums and friends and all of that. Wonderful. Have a great time. Exercise safety with the pool, but still, you do not want young people who are either underage or they're 21, but they're still, your brain computer is still developing at 21. You don't make the best decisions at 21, 22. May be best. Avoid that alcohol even at that age. Preserve your brain computer, especially if you're going to be out behind that wheel, because I can guarantee they will have sobriety checkpoints out over the coming days as we creep towards July 4th. It'll probably come out early, and I would say especially if you're in areas where it's a higher concentration of black people. Oh, yeah, I would say probably it might even be as early as this weekend, really. I would definitely think by Tuesday, because it's going to be all weekend. So I would think by Tuesday, oh, yeah. If you got young people, young drivers in your family, if you think you all are going to be out, vacation, driving and all that, get your water thermos. Get your nice pretty one, brand new, whatever, but ain't nothing in there but H2O. Maybe a few ice cubes. That's about it. No lead either. But that's all I'm sipping on. Like, oh no, you got to be out on the road, anything like that. I still say I would try and be in the house by the time it gets dark. I wouldn't want to be out running around late at night, especially in the summertime. If you got a lot of dark people and they're younger dark people under 25, like you are asking for the attention of race soldiers, badge or no, George Zimmerman style. Have your fun in the house. Saying, man, Gus T, you trying to have us be a square, man, just because you're a no-count, unattractive, broke, black, lame dude. Why we got to stay in the house? Well, I did just mention that Karmelo Anthony case in Frisco, Texas. There's a lot of other things I could have cited, but I mean, that would be one, type of thing that you can look forward to happening, being out and about. I don't think anybody was under the influence then because they were at a school track meet, but I mean, hey, you can imagine that type of event. Maybe you're in a mall parking lot and you got a teaspoon of Mad Dog 2020. What does that event look like then? That's all I'm saying. Sobriety would be best. That's all I'm saying. Before I do our prayer to wrap things up, I don't know why y'all wait till the end. That's why I said sometimes it's so tacky and frustrating. I sat there for a good hour. Do you have hands? Things to say? Hands? And they'll wait, and then I'll be ready to leave. Like, whoa, wait a minute, Gus T, what you mean? I was ready to talk. I put my hand up. I had about 15 things to say. Like, but I've been asking for a good hour if you had things to say. And this program has been on for a good 10 years, even though we weren't here for the last month. So I'll be patient because we haven't had the compensatory call-in for a month. But still, like, it hadn't been that long. Retired firefighter in Florida. Did you have commentary to share?
Yes, sir. Just two reports. The first one is I had been called upon for a what is called a class reunion. It would be from high school, the 50th, quote unquote, anniversary. And I had been trying to avoid it, but finally someone contacted me and was asking me about it, to join it and whatnot. And from what I had been researching, the only thing that they would be doing is having a party, meeting each other, and I guess bragging about what they had been doing since 1975. And I wasn't really interested in that at all. I think it's time wasting, and the amount of money that is being used to carry on this event. I would be interested in something like that if it was something that was going to assist teenage non-white people that are in high school, even at the high school that I attended. But that's not so as far as their activities. And so I wasn't really interested in it. The person that was contacting me is a guy that I literally grew up with, that, we graduated from the same class in the same high school, of course. And I told him about it. Lately, I've gotten a couple of nagging calls from a white female. And I wonder who was the person who gave my number out, asking something about a memory book. And my high school experience was not constructive at all, in my opinion, because they actually bussed us into an area that was full of nothing but white people. And I can recall that riding on the school bus, the younger white children, I'm talking about elementary school level, would be throwing rocks at our bus and calling us niggas. And we used to beg the driver to let us off the bus so we can get at them. But anyway, that was something that took place over the past couple of weeks while you were working. The other situation was quite unusual. Ex-coworker, he retired before I did. Vietnam veteran, combat Vietnam veteran, black male. We worked together at the station that I ended up retiring from. Also, he was a driver by that time when he retired. And we kind of like stayed in contact with one another because he's like has a hobby of repairing computers. And when my computer would be out, he would assist me into fixing it or getting another computer. And we would have conversations, and a lot of them would be on racism. We haven't contacted each other in a while, and he called me, and he texted me and asked me, I need a definition of the word racist. And could you give me a definition for the word racist, a short definition for the word racist. And I said to myself, wow, it's a simple question, but yet to me, it's huge for a person to ask that question and ask that question to me. And so I felt it was worth me to call him directly and give my answer to that question, which I did. Basically, what he was saying he needed the answer for, needed the definition for. One of those sessions where ex-military people have, and it's something like to help them mentally or something like that. And he was attending these type of meetings, and the question came up about racism, and he wanted to have a meaning for the word. And I thought that was so interesting. Not only to ask the question, but to ask me about he said, well, you would be the first person that I would ask. I guess that's because I had a routine of engaging in such conversations with him and others that he knows, and that's basically my report. Sorry I called late, but it wasn't going to be that long. But anyway, that's my report.
I wouldn't exactly say that was brief, but constructive. Much obliged, retired firefighter. They said they went to the reunion to show off. Now, part of me, I was thinking now, retired firefighter, so is he telling us if he had a brand new cherry red Tesla and gators to match, he would have gone to the reunion to show off? Now, you ain't seen a cherry red Tesla with matching gators before. None of you niggers. Now, look at that. Look, see, look at that. Came up in 50 years. See? Look at that. But I did pause and say, now, it is retired firefighter. Now, the brag could be now, how many people did I save working as a firefighter? That is the brag. How many houses that I helped extinguish where some people survived, or we pulled a child out, or elderly person, or whatever. Like, that is the brag, as opposed to my brand new cherry red Tesla. That is it. Negro culture in full effect, sadly. 2025. There is nothing to brag about on the plantation. Nothing. Anywho, definitions, that is spectacular. Like, man, that we would be making light years type progress. What they call it, light speed type progress if we had black people calling other black people black brother, black sister. Can you share your definition of racism with me? Oh my God. The cows might not even be needed anymore. Like, you could probably, we are on the clock. We are about to have this here problem solved. Black people are being serious, scientific. He didn't say he called to brag and show off. What type of coon is you? Tired by name called. None of that. He texted. Definition of a racist. Definition of racism. Serious. And talking about serious things. Definitions. Words. That is, when they say black people are serious about things that are silly, you just thought, hey, I just contact black people to get accurate definitions of terms. Now I'm being serious about things that are serious. I don't contact no black person about no fool talk. I don't contact no black. Do you see what Cat Williams? You seen the finals and whether? I just contact black people about things that are constructive. We're going to get this here problem solved, because we don't do that. We don't do that. We contact other black people. Really? We contact black people for conflict. Really? That's what it's going to be. Because that's what the showing off is. Coon, you ain't got no red Tesla like this, Coon. Who you calling, Coon? And then we got to have the tasers out at Bradford Beach. That's what the contact is for. So I can do some name calling, tell you what type of coon you are. It's not for anything constructive. It's not to share anything constructive. It's certainly not to solve no problem. It's certainly not to replace white supremacy with justice. It's just for conflict with other black people. Maybe to gossip about conflict that other black people are having. But definite, what's your definition of a racist? And racism. Love it. Love it. That we go to the reunion, talk about that. What's everybody's definition for racism? Is that something we've been working on for 50 years? Or last time we were at the reunion, this is the definition everybody had for racism. We'll come back in 5 years and see if we got a better one. Has anybody improved, or we still gonna talk about who got that fire truck red Tesla outside?
Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, my high school experience, Miami Killian Senior High is the name of the high school. It came under Brown versus Board of Education before the idea of building the high school was even thought of. It was built along those lines. So I went to high school with a lot of white people. They actually placed teenagers who grew up in Richmond Heights, historical Richmond Heights, and some other places, and sent them into an area that's probably 0.1% of non-white people, rich classified as black, to this new high school. The other high schools in Miami-Dade County, they changed from quote unquote all black or all white afterwards. But Killian from the inception was along those lines of Brown versus what I call Brown versus Board of Education. And so I had no constructive memories of these white people that I went to high school with. None of them at all. For the most part, I don't remember most of their names unless they were on the same football team that I was on. There was a few of them that I remember. But other than that, and the board who was organizing this thing, most of the people were white. So right then and there, I am not going to be interested in that. But I would have joined in with some of the people that I actually grew up with, if they were organizing along the lines of, well, with this experience that we had of living for 50 years after high school, that we would share it with younger black children or teenagers, if you want to call it that. And that would be some constructive. I don't need to be spending no money on the hotel and liquor or whatever they do with these reunions and that sort of thing. Is to be able to share experiences that would help teenagers, black teenagers who are, or non-white teenagers who are on the high school level. That would be my thought on it, but that wasn't the case. So therefore, that was an easy decision on not to participate.
Right on. Good decision, I think. I will say, if it's a lot of white people at the reunion, which is important, a lot of white people in there to show off, sounds like maybe even a high school in a racially restricted region. Now, that might be interesting, not to be there a whole long time or anything, but observe, counter-racist experiment. Observe, maybe ask a question or two from that perspective. But yeah, what you talked about, getting with the other victims to talk about the experience and the racism that you all endured, share that with black teens currently, and how you all, like, maybe it's been an evolution and how you all have thought about all this. Might have even been some people who didn't think about all that as racism at first, and now they do. Did anybody make friends with any of those white people? Did any of the white people reach out over the years? And, we called you all a nigger, and, my little brothers used to come out and be the ones throwing rocks at y'all, and he's sorry too, and, we didn't know any better. Our parents used to tell nigger jokes all the time, so we just, we thought that was written. Anybody had that, or no? Everybody just been chilling and happy with, their racist conduct? Like, yeah, that would be constructive to share. That would be awesome. I don't know, maybe you can talk to a few of the folks individually and see if they might be interested in starting that sort of effort. But absolutely, as opposed to getting together for liquor and hotels that are probably owned by white people, to then go out and drink liquor and reminisce about the good old days when they terrorized us and hurled boulders at us en route to school. Like, come on. Like, better use of our time.
Like $200, $300.
Oh yeah, that's
$200, $300 you had to pay in order to show up there.
Yeah,
I was not interested in that.
That's a lot of money for white people. Like, they came up again. Like, they don't even have to get a whole party of people. They get 100 or so folks, and woo, we came up for the summertime. So yeah, forget that. I think we can invest our money in a much more constructive manner that doesn't have to center around liquor, racists. If anything, we can be truthful about that experience of racism and share that with others. Share that with other parents. See, that's why I said right there, we don't need Ta-Nehisi Coates and others. They can write great books. Now, I didn't particularly care for Between the World and Me, but there are many non-white people who have put pen to pad, even hand wrote important efforts on racism, what it is, how it works. Sometimes that's not needed. If we're talking about just talking to your offspring, hey, you could just go tell them what happened at the school. Man, they bust us over there and throwing rocks at us. You can tell your child that directly. I'm not talking about retired firefighter, but I mean any of us. Just talk about what has your experience been in the system of white supremacy. What was your school experience like? What's your work experience been like? Just be true. What's your experience been with white people in general? Just share that. Like, you don't need a book. Nobody has done a better job of articulating your lived experience, and nobody will do a better job than you. So that's like number one. You can start right there. And you can do the same thing. You can pull out that old trusty pencil or pen, and you can get an old piece of paper and just write down. Now, what are some of the formative experiences that I've had with white people in my life? And just start writing. Because I didn't say bad, racist, just what are some of the important experiences that I've had with white people in my life? And write them down. And then see, now, was racism a factor? Right? And all go childhood, school, did you have white friends, white girlfriend, white boyfriend, whatever. Write it down. College years, if you got that. Work experience, like I said, white neighbors, whatever. Did you marry a white person? Do you have siblings who married a white person? So you have white in-laws or whatever. Write all that down. Has racism been a factor in any of this? Write all that down. Then you can organize it, try to add as much detail to it as possible. There you go, right there. You can just walk your child through. Now, this has been my lived experience with white people. Trying to get a loan, trying to get a job, working with Susan, living next to Roger. This has been my lived experience with white people. And this is my conclusion based on my experience with white people. And we'll add to it because I'm still meeting new white people. So it might be that I have to come and tell you that I met an amazing white person this week who is way different from all the other whiteys that I've met in the world. That might come a time. Well, this is what that assessment is right now. And if the white person is really that amazing, you know you're going to meet them. They coming to dinner today, too, or whatever it is. But, yeah, that's the way it should be. Yeah, I mean, let's stop, trying to mystify this and make it more confusing and daunting than it really has to be. What has your experience with white people been? Has it been constructive? And let's make an evaluation. Real simple. And you can do things like starting with retired firefighter in high school. Real simple. Or they throwing rocks. Was that constructive? Like I said, did any white people at school, oh man, come here, bless you, child. I'm so sorry y'all had to do it. We got a peanut butter sandwich and a little juice box for you. Calm your nerves. We're going to do a little meditation. Then we're going to go in and take gym. Maybe that happened. I don't know. Anything you're going to add before we wrap up?
It just slipped my mind. Oh yeah, I remember Mr. Fuller mentioning about when he was coming out of high school that he for the 12 years that he was in grade school, he didn't know exactly on what is the plan for him after this particular period of time, going into what is quote unquote called adulthood, that sort of thing. And there are millions of children, black children especially, that does not have a plan, does not have a plan of what they're going to do, how they're going to go about doing it. And you're talking about people who have lived 50 years after coming out of high school, and they should be able to help. A significant number of that group of people should be able to help that younger group of people on not to tell them exactly this is what you got to do, but give them options, ideas of what they could be doing, thinking about doing, as opposed to coming out of high school. When come out of high school, the options of what they could be doing is very, very important, very significant for that to take place. And that's much more important than the tradition of what is called a quote unquote high school class reunion, partying and, like I said, showing off and drinking and whatever, that sort of thing at the age of 67. Yeah, that's it.
Well, they say 21 forever, so, hey.
Right.
67 is the new 30. They got that Ozempic and all the rest of the drugs and everything. So, hey, if I can get out there at 75, hey, I'm going to get my Tesla and, get rid of these grays and hey. So, non-constructive all the way. Much obliged.
I'll take a 1965 Corvette Stingray, though.
Hey, see, I told you. And if he had that out in the driveway right now, he might be out there showing us. See that 65 out there? See, you ain't seen nothing like that. See, woo! Much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. We shall return at minimum on Thursday. Neutralizing workplace racism. Normal time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Might even be here early. Check social media. See if we begin nabbing guests as we get rerouted in the 206 once again. See if it is worthwhile, Gus T, fundraising to go to Buffalo. If they go ahead in September, it would just be waiting if they delay, and thank goodness, give us a little bit more time to recuperate. But if not, self-care, get ready to roll for Buffalo if they are on the docket for September 5 in Buffalo. Invest if you think the C.O.W.S is constructive, and Gus T's counter-racist courtroom coverage. Hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com, racism-notes.blogspot.com, PayPal button in the top right corner. The links for PayPal, Cash App, and Venmo are right there. Cash App, cash.app /$ the cows. Enormous gratitude again to all the folks who helped us get to Milwaukee on to Buffalo. Sobriety would be best going into so-called holiday weekend. Tell it to your offspring frequently between now and next 2 weeks. Say it frequently. Sobriety checkpoints, all of that. Remind them frequently. Creator, remind us to maximize our time and energy to replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Remind us not to waste non-white people's time and energy, especially our own. Stop name-calling black people. Stop producing throwaway offspring who can be raped by the likes of Mary Kay Letourneau. Stop gossiping. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cows signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.